Okay, everybody, I had the opportunity to go to Tucker Carlson's barn and sit down for a 2-hour conversation with him. First, Tucker's a great friend, and he's doing such amazing journalism and work. We've known each other for well over 10 years and have had a phenomenal friendship. And it was great to actually be able to go on his podcast for the first time. We talked about a lot here. This conversation is going viral for a reason. We talk about Gen Z. We talk about Russiagate. So I'm going to kind of usher you through this entire conversation and give you some intros throughout all of it, just some extra thoughts, things to add on top of that conversation. But first, make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell, go in the comments and leave your comment and your feedback to this conversation, and text this episode to your friends for the annotated version of my viral conversation with Tucker Carlson. We begin in kind of a funny, comical way, where Tucker comes right out of the gate, and we talk about Russiagate. Honestly, can we get 3 cheers for Tulsi Gabbard? Tulsi Gabbard is doing a phenomenal job. She is really serving the president wonderfully and getting to the bottom of what happened in the 2020 election. We start right out of the gate of Russiagate. Are we finally going to be able to get to the bottom of this? And will people like Barack Obama finally be able to go to jail? Watch.
So it looks like we're finally going to get the details of Russiagate. Like, what was that? It seemed manufactured at the time. It seemed fake. It was confusing. Like, where did this come from? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, we all hate Russia and Trump is a Russian agent, something that no one had ever said before. And then it just saturated the media, and it was the only topic for a couple of years.
Yes.
And no one ever kind of went back to examine, like, how do you create a story out of nothing and then convince Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York Times to write about it every day? And I think we're going to find out now. Do you think?
Well, great to be here, Tucker. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Sorry, Charlie. It's great to see you.
Yeah,
As I get older, my manners just evaporate.
This is like Frost Nixon. It's like straight in. It's like
sorry.
It's like the first question. So, why'd you burn the tapes? Or why didn't you burn the tapes? Yeah, great to be here, Tucker. Yes, I would go even a step further, because the war right now happening between Russia, Ukraine, and the West's support of it actually was an extension of Russiagate.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Because part of one of the unintended consequences of Russiagate, not unintended, I think actually intended, but unintended from our perspective, because we were so focused on the Trump component, was how it was desensitizing the Democrat Party to hate Russia. If you think about it, Donald Trump was the worst villain ever in the history of the world, according to the Democrat Party. So they needed to have an explanation as to how this guy won. Because, of course, it can't be the fact that they deindustrialized Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, flooded the country with a bunch of illegals, and allowed opioids into the country. There must be another reason. So they tried Cambridge Analytica first. Do you remember that was the first attempt?
Yes.
The Cambridge Analytica thing, that it was Donald Trump's ability to get in the back end of Facebook. That's why he won. But that didn't really satisfy the Democrats. And so simultaneously, we know this because the Russia narrative came ex nihilo. It came out of nowhere. And
that's the way it felt. I was completely confused.
And Tulsi is getting to the bottom of it. And I'm not going to pretend to know all the details of what she's working on. And I've been cheering her on, sending her text messages saying, you go, Tulsi, you go, because it's so wrong what happened to President Trump and so wrong what happened to our country. But when you think about it, it desensitized the entire Democrat Party to then have a very negative view of Russia, even beyond a normative Western view of Russia, as if Donald Trump is an attaché of the Kremlin. And if you hate Trump, you therefore must also hate Putin and Russia. So fast forward to Putin's invasion of Ukraine, you had the entire Democrat Party and the base of the Democrat Party that used to be anti-war, that used to be where the Ben and Jerry's guy was. You had him on your show. It was great. But the rank and file kind of had a subdued response at best to the financing of the Russian-Ukrainian war, largely because of Russiagate. Because so many base members of the Democrat Party and the activists were led to believe that Donald Trump only became president because of the assistance of the Kremlin.
So smart. And can I just add one parenthetical note that a lot of them were pro-Russia when it was Soviet.
Correct.
because the Soviet Union was above all anti-Christian. And then when the country became Orthodox again, it was easy to hate it again.
Yes. And you know this, you helped lead I don't want to say even anti-war, just the skepticism from the West viewpoint that why are we sending all this money to Ukraine? Is it good for us? That used to be a left-wing thing. That used to always be driven from the base of the Democrat Party. And from AOC to Elizabeth Warren to Bernie Sanders, they were largely silent on the amount of money that we sent to Ukraine. So why? Is it because they started to love war? No, it's because Putin became an acceptable villain for the Democrat Party, because they made the archetype of villain and the archetype of Putin and Trump to be kind of one and the same. That all goes back to Russiagate. It goes back to the lie of the dirty dossier. It goes back to how our intel agencies were then used inwardly against us. And that has really been the story the last 30 to 40 years. And you deserve a lot of credit for covering this, which is our intel services are supposed to gather intelligence and defend the homeland and to keep us domestically safe. But it turns out they're actually more about picking winners and losers in American elections and to thwart the will of popular sovereignty. So I hope that we get to the bottom of this, because we are still dealing with the real world ramifications. You have to wonder how many Ukrainians and Russians, by the way, because people are dying on both sides of this war that are made in the image of God, are unnecessarily dead because of what our intel services did in 2016 and 2017.
I don't think that can be said enough. Thank you for saying it again, that our position, I would say the war itself, I mean, I think the Biden administration provoked Russia into it by declaring that Ukraine was going to be part of NATO. That's my interpretation. I think it's true. But even if you don't buy that, we seamlessly moved from no war with Russia into an actual war with Russia, and very few people said anything about it. And I think the reason they didn't is because they had just spent the last 3 years hearing about how Putin was the worst person in the world. He was our main enemy. Not the Chinese, actually. Not the Indians. Not anybody else. No, it was Russia. So do you expect that people will be held accountable for it?
I hope so. I mean, look, I don't know what's in the details. I don't know what's in the documents. We kind of have a little bit of a teaser. We saw last week what Tulsi said. She said there's more coming. And basically what we learned last week, for everyone that was hopefully enjoying your summer, not glued to your phone, nonstop over the weekend, we learned that Obama personally ordered an intel report. It's like, hey, was it true that Russia was behind this election? And from my understanding, the report said, no, Russia was not behind this election, did not manipulate votes. Trump was not elected because of Russia. This was in December of 2016 in a private classified intel briefing. That is now declassified thanks to Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. What is even more chilling, though, which goes back to Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and James Comey, is how the FBI and the CIA seem to be working on the same page. The FBI was almost doing the domestic bidding of the CIA. And you have to wonder how much of this Russiagate situation was the insurance policy that Peter Strzok famously put in his text messages. Remember, he was going back and forth with his, with his lover, Lisa Page, where he was saying, hey, don't worry, we have an insurance policy. You have to wonder what exactly was that. And my contention is that that was the Russiagate situation, that they had this dossier paid for by the Democrat Party with Clinton funds to then illegally be able to spy on the Trump campaign. As an extension of that, create this entire narrative. And, part of what also needs to be said is how much of Trump 1 was stolen from President Trump and the mandate of the people because of Russia. It's very funny. I was thinking about where was I and where were we as a country back in July of 2017, 6 months into Trump's term back in Trump 1. We had Jeff Sessions basically completely sidelined because of his, I have to recuse myself. And honestly, an unnecessary recusal. I think that he never should have recused himself. We had Bob Mueller popping up.
Let me just say that whatever you think of what Sessions did or why he did it or whatever, I'm probably the only person willing to give him credit for, a good faith mistake. I think it was obviously a mistake.
And he was also great on crime, by the way. Sessions was actually really good on violent crime, but that's
Everyone
a separate issue. But yeah,
beats up on Jeff Sessions. I know Jeff Sessions very well. Jeff Sessions is no liberal. Jeff Sessions is a really decent man. Jeff Sessions made a big mistake, in my opinion, by recusing himself, but he didn't do it to sabotage Trump. He was the first senator to endorse Trump. He loved Trump. So whatever, the whole thing was a tragedy. But my point is, wherever you stand on that, it separated the president from his attorney general.
And then Rod Rosenstein was running the entire DOJ. You know what I mean? That true Trumper, Rod Rosenstein, right? So we had Rod Rosenstein.
Pride of Baltimore. Yes.
Right, exactly. As good as it gets. So Trump was without a Department of Justice with his first term at this point, basically.
Gosh.
We had Bob Mueller like lurching back under the surface, like coming back from, they brought him out of retirement.
And he was kind of in a Biden state at that point.
Remember his interview? You didn't know where he was or what was going on.
Poor man, yeah.
I just have a side note. We're learning kind of how the modern technocratic Democrat Party works, which is bring an old guy with an amazing biography by DC standards.
But who happens to have dementia.
Yeah, just put him in the chair, and then all of these 30-something lawyers that went to Yale and Harvard will do all the work. It's kind of how a technocratic state works. But anyway, think about where we were in Trump 1, which I think is really important, and how we're in a profoundly better position we are today. The first year of the Trump presidency and then year 2 or 3 were largely stolen by this whole Russiagate situation. Is that President Trump was constantly on defense. He was constantly having to defend himself. He had Mueller looking into Manafort, looking into Cohen, looking into all of his close associates, which of course the report came out and showed no collusion, and all stemming from a lie. And that's the kicker. So to answer your question, I hope people start to go to jail. We need perp walks. We need handcuffs. We need mass arrests, because you're not allowed to steal precious time of a presidency away from the American people that otherwise would have been spent on governing.
You have such a good memory. One of the advantages of
and we did no prep on this.
31. No, not at all. I just threw
10
it at
seconds
you.
before I said Russiagate.
I'm impressed. The recent threat of foreign wars has turned news coverage in this country away from what's happening in the United States, and we're certainly part of that. The downside, unfortunately, is that it plays into hands of the worst people. The establishment don't want you focused on the United States because that's a threat to their control. The more closely you look at what they're doing, the more angrier you're going to get, and they're getting rich off what's happening here. The health of everyday Americans is one of the issues that we ignore. More and more people seem exhausted, anxious, foggy, overweight. Testosterone tanking in men is one of the causes of that, and there are a lot of others as well. The medical system just shrugs this off and pushes, of course, more drugs. But that doesn't solve the problem. It hasn't. Joy and Blokes will. Their clinic delivers hand-guided, expert-guided care for hormone health, longevity, cutting-edge peptide therapy. You don't have to leave your house to get any of it. You pair that with their smart supplements, which are fully personalized and have over 3 billion combinations, and you get actual results with no gimmicks at all. Go to joyandblokes.com to get 20% off all their products and their therapies. They're also offering a free 15-minute health coach consultation for anyone who's got questions. Start feeling like yourself again, stronger, sharper, and built to last. joyandblokes.com/Tucker. Root cause medicine, the way healthcare really should be. And I'm remembering everything you said, and everything you said I think is correct.
Who really runs our government? That's what Tucker and I talk about next. It is now the fight against the intel agencies. All roads lead to the CIA and the intel agencies. And it really comes down to this question of who is in charge of this nation. Now, mind you, I did not come into this interview prepared to talk about this, but as a talk show host and a radio guy, I can talk about almost anything at any time. And so we talked about this question of what is the fourth branch of government and who's really in charge?
I also think it's just important to know that federal intel and law enforcement agencies are not allowed to form their own separate, unaccountable government and run affairs of state. That's a nightmare scenario that puts you in a dictatorship,
yes,
totally insulated from the public. I mean, voters have no way to control that. That's not a democracy. That's a dictatorship. And that's where we are. And I just feel like it's important to expose that and to punish those responsible.
Without a doubt. And this is now the big fight in front of Trump 2. And everyone knows it. We ran on it. We said it. And I think we're now going to get massive action in that direction from hopefully Kash and Dan and Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, the whole gang. They're focused on this. And I think they're looking for the right place to strike, which is who actually runs this government.
Exactly.
The first term, we were kind of under this very naive idea that the people run the government.
That's what I thought.
And then we were like, well, it's the lobbyists. And you're right.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
remember?
It's the lobbyists.
It's
K
Monsanto.
Street.
Right. It's right. K Street. It's like, yeah, okay.
But so true.
But after I think 7 or 8 years, and it's taken time, we're finally back to where a lot of the Hillsdale crowd has been, and Dr. Larry Arnn has been, to his great credit. It's the administrative state and the intel agencies.
Yes.
It's this fourth branch of government that the founders never created, they never designed, there was no intent for. And that fourth branch of government is unaccountable, has unknown biographies of people that are running it, and they're there for unlimited amounts of time. There's no term limits. They're not elected, and they're unelected.
There are, and I don't want to put you in uncomfortable situations. You don't need to comment on this, just brief aside, but we actually have civilian control, the control of elected leaders over those agencies, the president, of course, but also members of Congress.
Mm-hmm.
We have the
We have
committees.
intelligence boards too.
Right. And we have something called the Senate Intel Committee.
Right.
And the person leading that,
Tom Cotton.
you don't have to comment on that. I think Tom Cotton's one of the most sinister people in the U.S. government. It's like your job is to make sure the CIA doesn't form its own separate, unaccountable government. And yet he's all in on CIA, where his wife used to work. Like, he is serving CIA. And what about his constituents in Arkansas? What about the rest of us? Why isn't the guy in charge of keeping the CIA's behavior within constitutional bounds accountable to the president of the United States? Why isn't he doing that? And I just find it enormous. And I know that there are lots of good things about Tom Cotton. He's a nice guy. He's very smart. But like, what the hell? And why does no one say that?
And let me say this also. There are whispers that this next bill is going to be passed, whatever like perfunctory bill they have to pass, is going to try to neuter DNI. Is that they want to try to wall off
CIA
Liberty Crossing.
wants Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Kent, and the other people, the director of National Intelligence, and that whole
apparatus,
which was created after 9/11.
which is hilarious because it was created by the worst people.
Exactly.
And now it's actually it's a central nervous system for us to look under the hood, and they know it.
Right.
And so again, I don't know all the details of this. Someone texted me yesterday and they said, hey, we have to make sure that Tulsi does not get basically, neutered in this whole process, that it just kind of becomes a ceremonial.
She's the one person you shouldn't doge.
No, in fact, Tulsi, and this is very important, the intel agencies by far have the least proportional civilian control versus careers.
That's exactly right. CIA has like 3 or 4.
And Ratcliffe is, fighting for his life there. And it's like, who runs, you have all these unknown amounts of people, and what are they doing? And it's a black box budget. And I believe that all roads lead back to the intel agencies on all this stuff. And so, but Tulsi is now getting under the hood. This revelation of Russiagate is massive. It's huge.
I know.
And God bless her for doing this. And I know the president cares about it personally, as he should, because how much of his life and his energy was just spent defending against a fabrication, not a fabrication of the Chinese Communist Party, by the way, not a fabrication of our adversaries, a fabrication of our own government. That's what makes this so sinister, is that our own government was turned against the duly elected president. So here we are now in the year of our Lord 2025. Who's running the United States government?
Great question.
And President Trump, he is now the hunter. He was the hunted back in the first term. I know what the grassroots want. I know what President Trump wants. We need perp walks. We need arrests. We need accountability. And if we do not smash the administrative state and the deep state in the coming 6 to 12 months, then we're actually not going to bring this entire intelligence apparatus to heel. We have to lance the boil because it's gone so out of control. And I can tell you, they are deeply fearful of this movement. They know that we are aware. They know that we are noticing things, that we're seeing patterns, that we know how powerful the intel agencies have become. And so that's why I think Russiagate really matters, is that it's a way to hold them accountable, to see how dark and honestly demonic their activities have become.
Yes.
And hopefully an opportunity to fulfill a mandate that President Trump ran on, and I still know believes to this day, which is to bring the deep state to hopefully smash it, or at the very least bring it back into balance.
Now, in this part of the conversation, I dive deeper into the question of what really is the deep state? Where does it come from? What is the outgrowth of? How many branches of government are we supposed to have? What is the administrative state? And what is the shadow government? We dive deep into this, Tucker and I, and we examine this from all angles. And we make a pretty good argument that if we do not assail the deep state, bring it to heel, lance the boil, then we are not going to have a country. President Donald Trump has pledged to rein in the deep state. It's more important than ever. Watch.
And the deep state is the intel agencies.
Well, that's the shadow government, right?
CIA.
It's not the deep state. Look,
it's not the education department.
If I could chime in, so there's 2 types of deep state, right? There's the Department of Education deep state. They just slow things down. That's their only. They leak and they delay.
Right.
That's it. That's the deep state of the Department of Labor. So you're getting some sort of executive order we don't like. We're going to leak it to the Washington Post. We're not going to do what you tell us to. We're just going to delay and we're going to last. Okay, fine. We can deal with leaking and delaying. The third of which, though, which the Department of Labor is not doing, they're not configuring their agency against the sovereign.
No.
Right?
And they're probably not killing anyone.
No, exactly. So the intel agencies in its inherited composition from Joe Biden and how it's been for the last 40 years, leaking and delaying, they're like, that's child's play, okay? We're going to go do dirty dossiers. We're going to spy. We're going to employ feds. We're going to use special agents, double agents. We're going to use Five Eyes. We're going to rely on our foreign partners to spy on Americans domestically because we can't do that, and they'll share the intelligence. And so a lot of focus kind of goes on, let's just say, the lazy slop of the people at the Department of Interior. Yeah. Okay, fine. We can clean that up. God bless the people that want to do that. But if we do not focus the energy of this movement on the administrative state, then we are going to have elections in name only. And I know the president understands this because he lived through a thwarted first term largely because of the intel agencies and what we would like to call the shadow government.
No, Trump has 97 charges against him, all in?
Yes.
Speaking of which, why don't we know what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania? Remember that day when Donald Trump got shot and he was only millimeters away from dying? Why is it that we have more questions than answers? What happened on Butler, Pennsylvania? I try not to take too much time thinking about Butler. Butler is a very deep topic. In fact, I'd love you guys to be in the comments. Tell me what your theories are about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. And we need arrests. I don't even know if arrests are necessary because we don't know who else was involved. How about this? Let me just rephrase that. We need answers. And we're left with a lot more questions than answers. Watch this.
And we still don't know what happened on July 13th.
And we certainly don't at Butler. That's exactly right. Why don't we know that? Do you know?
I don't know. And I know that we have the right, we could not have better people in those positions.
At the top.
Like, Dan Bongino well. I could speak very high for his integrity.
Oh, I love Dan. Yeah.
And so they need to act on this.
Yep.
And I don't have much more to say than that, but I don't know.
FBI needs to, and I think
specifically the FBI on that.
Yeah. And the FBI is stonewalling. And it's not Bongino, it's not Kash Patel, it's that I know of. I mean, I don't know, actually, but I know that they're stonewalling on that. And I think it's very weird. They still can't get into Crooks' devices.
The whole thing is so bizarre.
Really? Because they can read my text messages, I notice.
they can read your signal messages.
And they have.
Which is even worse than text messages.
I haven't even shot anybody.
I will, you're not Dick Cheney. I will go a step for, I try to not spend too much time on July 13th because it's bad for my brain.
I totally agree.
It's so weird. It's so bizarre. I like spending time with my wife and my kids, and I try to have a very focused subset of issues that I get passionate about.
That's how I feel.
Things that I can't get to answers on will drive me endlessly insane. So I want one day to find out what happened on July 13th because by only the grace of God and by a millimeter is Trump alive and is Trump president.
If you can murder presidential candidates, it's not a democracy, obviously. So
and get away with it.
And get away with it, right? But they just can't get into his devices. I mean, he had no social media profile.
How did he get on the roof and how was it unguarded? And and then it was 2 days before the Republican National Convention. It felt, again, if you were to kind of go in a dark place, which again, this is all speculation, it felt like, well, this is our last chance before he's the nominee.
Yep.
Because you know what happens once you're the nominee? You get Secret Service protection.
Yep.
And this is an unknown element of this. Literally, as soon as you get to become the nomination, by bylaws of Secret Service, whatever, you get equal presidential protection. So he had a bunch of like DHS hangovers. No offense to the people that were protecting him on the day of Butler, some of which did a great job, some of which are not people I would necessarily, go to war with.
No.
Just, more of the TSA agent mold than the Secret Service agent mold. And again, that's not a criticism of them. So if you want to get like really dark and go in that direction, you have to ask those questions. But I try not to focus too much on Butler because I think it leads you in a place where you ask more questions than we have answers.
I have the same instincts. So we want to brag, but this has got to be the most pro-dog podcast on the entire internet. They're almost always dogs, actually, just off camera. So dogs are non-negotiable. Dogs are the best, and people who love dogs really, really love them. We can relate. And so for that reason, we are thrilled to announce a new partner called Dutch Pet. It's the fastest growing telehealth service for your pets. It's on a mission to create affordable, quality veterinary care at any time, no matter where you are. They'll get your beloved pet what they need, and they do it at a high speed. And by the way, if you ever brought your dog to the vet, the dog doesn't like it. They can smell the darkness sometimes. It's true. Sometimes you have to go to the vet, but if you can avoid it, you should, and you want to. And Dutch.com has vets who can treat over 150 animal conditions with just 10 minutes on the phone. You never have to leave home. You never have to scare or upset your dog. No wasted time. You don't have to wait weeks for an in-office appointment, and you don't waste money. Unlimited visits and follow-ups for no extra cost. Free shipping on all products for up to 5 pets. Membership starts as little as $11 per month, and Dutch.com saves most customers nearly $1,000 a year. We use it. It's awesome as dog owners. It sounds too good to be true, probably, but it's absolutely real. Visit Dutch.com/Tucker to learn more. Use the code Tucker for up to $50 off your veterinary care plan per year. That's a year of unlimited vet visits for $82 a year. Your pets and your wallet will thank you. This is going to change the game, and we're proud to be partnered with them.
And now we get into the meat of the conversation. How many of you in this audience know about the 4 letters BNPL? Brian, do you know BNPL? Buy now, pay later. You probably know it. You could, tickets from Klarna or Affirm or Afterpay. I wanted to bring something to this conversation with Tucker Carlson that was new, that was not yet covered. Something that is important to the next generation, but has not gotten the attention it deserves. I talk about the issues that Generation Z actually cares about: economics, home ownership, and owning things. You see, the globalists, they want you to own nothing and to be happy. I make the argument that if you own nothing, you get radical politics and you get very unhappy people. Watch.
So you are, I think, you are more in touch with young voters than any other single person in American politics, certainly on the Republican side. You're way more effective than the RNC, though I think they have a bigger budget than you.
We get along great with them. Now,
I'm not quite sure what that. Well, then I don't want to cause you problems. I have no idea what do they do.
Back when Ronna was running things, we did not get. We were very vocal about getting rid of Ronna McRomney, but
I think you're the most effective Republican organizer. Certainly among young people you are. And you deal with them and you wade into the crowd and you go to college campuses and you debate people and you have a tactile sense, I think, of what younger voters care about. And so I'll just ask you the obvious question. What do they care about?
So there's a race against the clock that's happening right now. And I think President Trump is uniquely suited to fix it. He has to fix it, which is, can we reorder the economic reality of under 30s before dark political radicalization sets in?
The economic reality.
Correct.
It's there's a topic that's never broached.
Well, here we go.
No, but it's just interesting it's interesting that's your first answer. The economics. I have always noticed, and I am insulated from a lot of that stuff, I'll admit. I don't really notice.
I would be otherwise if I didn't spend as much time, because we do very well. We're in the top income bracket. So,
well, I just noticed no one talks about it. So I think that's weird. People used to talk about economics. They don't anymore. So you think that's economics is the number one issue for young people.
Oh,
if we don't address it, we go to dark places. What does that mean?
So a couple things. Number one, the rise of Mamdani should be it's a coming attraction of what is coming next.
Who's Mamdani?
Zohran Mamdani, the Muslim communist that is running for mayor in New York City, who obviously there's a whole rabbit hole we can go down there. He just looks kind of be like central casting and, his ideas are terrible. He wants the city to run the grocery stores, all that. But I think everyone's not everyone, but most people are missing the point of really what this is. This is yet another distress signal by young people to say, hey, if you're not going to fix our life economically, we're going to get very radical politically. Now, let's take a step back. President Trump won the youth vote in many states across the country, in many battleground states. Now, Tucker, 12, 13 years ago when I started Turning Point, if you would have told me that a Republican running for the presidency would be winning the youth vote in Michigan and in Arizona, I'd say, no way. It's an incomprehensible accomplishment of what President Trump was able to do. One of the reasons he was able to win younger voters and younger men, especially in big numbers, is that they were trying to get their leaders' attention. They said, hey, this guy, Donald Trump, he is pledging to go fix our economic anxiety. He is loud. He is going to get your attention. Donald Trump was a distress signal by a lot of young people, especially young men, that we're stuck in a credit-centric renter economy. And again, this is what is the rise of Mom Donnie. It's just another iteration of this, only from the left, which is
a credit-centric renter economy.
Yes, which is the way that we need to focus, that we need to kind of frame this. And conservatives, I think I know why, are just so unwilling to have this conversation. And I'm not even going to get into what we should do about it. I think I have some good ideas. And trust me, I'm not a socialist. I'm a market guy. I like capitalism. I think markets are good. I think entrepreneurship is good. But we need to kind of paint this picture first, because I think I know this for certain, so many people in DC have no idea what I'm talking about when I bring this up to them. And secondly, a lot of people over 50 think this is a foreign concept, and they think, quite honestly, this is just the complaining of young people that don't want to work. So let me kind of paint this picture. It is harder than ever to own a home. We know this, but how much harder? Back when my parents had to go own a home, the price of a home—
How old are your parents?
They're early 70s.
Yep.
So late 60s, early 70s. So baby boomers.
Yep.
And great parents, by the way, phenomenal upbringing, great values. So back when they wanted to go buy a home in their beginning income years, 1970s, 1980s, home prices were on average about 3 times the average income in America. They are now 7 times the average income in America. Rents have gone up inflation adjusted from about $900 a month to now about $1,500 a month.
Inflation adjusted.
Inflation adjusted. The age of a first-time home buyer in 2008 was 30 years old. It is now 38 years old. First-time home buyer. So when we have a picture of a first-time home buyer—
And that's scary.
You think of, kind of a toddler in one arm, a dog, you're trying to figure it out. 38 years old. So what is causing this? Well, number one, I don't want to get like too Ron Paul libertarian, but the Federal Reserve pumping in cheap money post-2008 has just been a catastrophe. We have spent too much money, borrowed too much money. We have deteriorated our currency. And the purchasing power every generation is getting weaker. So your dollar is actually going less and less as far as it has year over year. So then what is the consequence of this? So you have a generation that is renting a lot more than it's owning. So when you do not own something, why would you defend it? So you find then political radicalization start to seep in, because an entire generation is getting routinely cynical year over year as their net worth either stays at 0 or goes into negative.
We talk more about BNPL here, the new financial scam, and it's secretly enslaving Gen Z. If you're a young person out there, be very careful taking out this pay things in 4 parts type collateralization. It's a scam. Stay away from it. We are a debt-financed society, and increasingly a debt-financed generation. This is a major problem that is enveloping young people all across the country, and we need to proceed with caution, and I think we need to talk about this forcefully and openly. Watch.
Now, my question for every Republican senator and congressman watching this: if you do not know these 4 letters, then you are not doing your job. BNPL. Do you know what that means?
No clue.
Buy now, pay later. Buy now, pay later is how 60%, according to surveys, of Generation Z is paying for things month to month. They're not credit cards. So this is not regulated by credit bureaus. It's not regulated with credit checks. It's basically anything from Amazon to Instacart, groceries, clothing, furniture. You can finance anything. It's BNPL. It's run by 3 main companies: Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay. And essentially, you're 21, 22 years old. You can split a pizza into 4 payments. Sounds great, right? This is the modern tech economy.
Buy a pizza on credit?
Yes. It's
happening now?
You can go to Instacart right now, and either through Klarna, Affirm, or Afterpay. Those are the 3 big actors. These are non-credit regulated bureaus.
Shut those fuckers down tomorrow. No, I'm serious. I'm so offended. Here's a depressing but true statistic. Nearly half of American adults say they would suffer financial hardship within 6 months if they lost their primary income earner. That's a telling sign that people are living on the edge. Many of them. The economy's fragile. That's true for millions and millions of people. What do you do about it? Well, life insurance is one of the best ways to protect yourself from potential hardship. We recommend Policy Genius to get it. Policy Genius's plans offer life insurance policies starting at just $276 a year for $1 million in coverage. It feels complex to buy life insurance. They make it really easy. They help you compare different quotes from the market's top insurers so you get the lowest possible price, the best deal for your family. Policy Genius lays out all of your options really clearly. Coverage amounts, prices, terms, no guesswork at all. It's all very clear. They handle the questions, they handle the paperwork, they advocate for you throughout the process. So if you don't have life insurance because it seems too complex, they are the answer. Your family's future could be guaranteed to a great extent with Policy Genius. Go to policygenius.com/Tucker to compare free life insurance quotes from top companies, see how much you could save and to what extent you could protect your family. Policygenius.com/Tucker.
And by the way, two of them are foreign companies, just so we're clear. One is a Swedish company and one is an Australian company. I did a deep dive into this.
You can buy a pizza on credit?
Yes, you can buy almost anything on credit. Concert tickets, you can buy. So when I'm a big sports fan, I'm a huge Chicago Cubs fan. It's just fun. I grew up in Chicago. When I go to buy tickets at Wrigley Field, they say, finance this over the next 3 years using Klarna.
Actually?
Yes. Concert tickets, Taylor Swift tickets. So what you have is a workaround.
What's the collateral?
There's no credit score, so it's just you. It's like your Social Security. They're collateralizing you. So it's very high risk for the quote-unquote lender, but they have the late fees and the penalties make these companies eventually whole because they know they got you. And again, this is not regulated by traditional credit bureaus. So the federal government has not really waded in on this yet. And again, you could.
I'm just like
your younger folks can affirm everything I'm saying. I'm not right. Am I correct? I'm not making any of this up. It's BNPL. So when I sit down with a Republican senator,
I never think of myself as out of it or not in touch or whatever. I flatter myself that I've got my thumb on the pulse of the country. I am shocked. I've heard people refer to this. I didn't realize if you can buy a pizza on credit, someone needs to.
But here's the kicker, and your groceries. The belief is that Gen Z is doing this to live above their means. Most are actually doing this to meet their means.
So that's the definition of predatory.
Right. And so again, this is not structurally healthy debt. So there's an argument for debt if you have a mortgage, because the whole system is kind of rigged towards mortgages.
Of course it is.
You could deduct the interest, the asset price goes up.
It's hard to get off the mortgage addiction. I did it, but
there's an argument for it.
You take your lumps if you don't have a mortgage.
And I think there's an argument that's actually an okay and
you could
reconcilable type of debt.
I know smart people have mortgages.
If you are in investment banking and you have student loan debt and that student loan certificate, that credential got you the investment bank, okay, you bet on yourself. Maybe that's justifiable. Again, I'm very anti-college, as you know. There's really no place where you can make an argument that financing your Whole Foods order is good for you.
But to do that to young people who really, I'm 56 and I'm still terrible with money. It's hard. It's hard. And I don't think I'm not lazy and I don't think I'm profligate, but I also think I'm easily fooled because I'm distracted. And if I was 21, imagine how much more unsophisticated I would be and how much more vulnerable to predatory behavior like that. And everything is so easy because everything is digital now. That's an awful thing to do to young people.
And it creates a subterranean debt market that a lot of these young people think this is how you pay for stuff. They haven't been educated otherwise. They're like, oh yeah, I'll just, pay for that meal in 5 installments.
What are the interest rates like?
They can get very high. I don't want to speak out of turn, but they can get to be double digits, right? And so that's really where they get you is the late fees.
This is bonkers.
And so it's not regulated by traditional APR. So this is it's a gray area. And I think people are finally waking up. So, hey, Republicans.
Can you tell me the name of the 3 companies again?
So it's Affirm, Klarna, and Afterpay.
Afterpay, which is the American one.
I believe so, yeah. So one of them was bought by Box and is operated by Square, which I believe is Klarna. I don't want to speak out of term here. One of them it's still Australian run, but it's run by Box. It might be Afterpay. Someone can fact check me on this. But those are the 3 big actors. And they've kind of just gone below the surface. So we create all this economic anxiety by pumping the system with cheap money. Everything gets more expensive. Meanwhile, we have millions of young people that are financing their Coachella tickets, but it's not through credit cards. Because in credit cards, we have a very regimented, regulated system. I think the credit cards are a disaster and we need to kind of figure that out. But this is a totally different thing. And so what they've done is they've tried to create a loophole. And federal regulators are slow, as they typically are. And they're like, oh, no, this is not credit cards. This is something else. This is like a repayment thing. It's like buy now, pay later. And it's the opposite of what built the West. What built the West is work now, pay after. So you're going to meaning like we will enjoy things later. That's what built the West. This is like enjoy things now and pay for it later. It is
You know what I don't like about conservatives, and I am one, is that it would never occur to some of them that there are two sides to the story. It's like immediately, they blame the people who are, buying Coachella tickets on credit, which I get. You shouldn't buy Coachella tickets on credit or your pizza or your Whole Foods order. I totally agree with that. That's stupid. But it doesn't occur to them that there's another side, that the people loaning the money are taking advantage of the dumb people borrowing the money. That both are culpable. And by the way, I think the people with more power and more wisdom are probably more culpable, act morally, than the people who are. In other words, like, are we matter at the drug user or the drug dealer?
And then also,
typically the dealer, but conservatives look at all economic arrangements and they never blame the dealer. And I don't know what that is. Like, how about we'll blame everybody? It's bad.
I think the reason, and it's a tick within the conservative movement, is that all of a sudden we're Marxists if we do that. And I think that no, I'm not saying, I don't believe that.
No, but you're absolutely right.
I think
it's like I'm a racist if I don't like mass immigration. Well, I don't like mass immigration, but I'm not a racist. I don't like this, and I'm not a Marxist. Like, It's just name calling to stop you from raising the question.
It's thought terminating cliches, is what it is.
So good,
right? It's stop thinking it, because we're gonna terminate your thought by calling you a Marxist or whatever. And do I think this should be illegal? I don't know. Probably. I need to learn more about it. All I'm saying is I am here as a messenger of the next generation. I'm telling you, this is bad. This generation can't own anything. They owe so much more money than generations prior. This is the most indebted generation in history. And I double checked that. Gen Z owes the most money in any history, any generation in history. So we wonder why then all of a sudden, hey, you want to go buy a home now at the age of 38, your credit score is destroyed. Your spending habits are terrible. You don't want to save and you don't think you should save. And you know what I hear from some of them is they say, well, why should I save when what I saw around me is that you need to get into this economy and spend because the savers got wrecked in 2008. Again, that's an oversimplification, but there is economic nihilism that is set in to a lot of this next generation where they're not participating in any of the upside right now, any of the upside of the last 5 years. In fact, they're only seeing the downside. They're seeing their apartments get smaller, their rents go up, their groceries get more expensive. Now, mind you, I think President Trump is, again, he's uniquely positioned to solve this. I think that his one big beautiful bill is going to help, and I think growth will help this and lowering interest rates. But let me just say, though, why do I say it's a race against the clock? And here's why it should concern conservatives. Because when I'm at dinner parties raising money, some of our donors are a little indifferent about this. They'll have kind of like a, hey, pull yourself up by the bootstraps attitude. That's hard to shake. I don't have that attitude. I actually have a lot more compassion for the 23-year-old that is working a double shift and can't afford anything. But even if you don't care about them, you're not going to like the politics that comes next.
But how did we wind up on the side of the money lenders? I mean, at no other time in history is that been considered a virtuous business at all. I know a million people in that business, finance we call it, but I don't understand why they became immune from criticism. And there are places where, I borrowed a lot of money in my life and I'm grateful for it and all that. But I don't think it's virtuous. And I don't think we should say that it's virtuous. And I don't think the people who do it should be above criticism. I don't know. Why is the right participating in basically a cover-up of a crime against people?
Or even like from my perspective, why is the right so blind to the suffering of the young people that just gave you a Senate majority?
Oh, fair. Good question.
So Roe v. Wade was overturned 3 years ago and people celebrated, but the battle over abortion is not over. In fact, did you know that abortions are at a 10-year high? In a lot of ways, it's the saddest thing that happens in this country. The birth rate falls and the killing of children accelerates. It's awful. Preborn is fighting this trend. They're expanding their life-affirming care in the darkest corners of the country to help women and save babies. Now, the abortion mafia don't want women to think about what they are carrying. They want them to think that ending the pregnancy will solve all of their problems, but that is not true. 11% of women who take the abortion pill, for example, go on to suffer serious health consequences. And that does not include the emotional and moral consequences. It's bad. It's ending a life. So when you give to preborn, you are not just saving a baby, you're saving a mother too. Preborn has already rescued over 350,000 babies. There are still many, many more who need help. Dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby to support their cause. That's pound 250 baby. Go to preborn.com/Tucker, preborn.com/Tucker, because children are the greatest gift, period.
This is a generation that just put you in charge of all your committees. Young people, thank you. You should be saying, thank you, younger voters. You voted Republican in overwhelming numbers. That's one of the reasons, again, I like Dave McCormick a ton, so I'm not throwing him into this, but younger voters helped put Dave McCormick as a U.S. Senator. And I think he gets this more so than most. Donald Trump built this movement of younger voters that galvanized the nation. Again, this is the untold story of the 2024 election, is how Donald Trump won the youth vote in so many parts of the country. Okay, so what are they experiencing? They own nothing. They're renting constantly. And they're involved in this scam of a credit-based economy. Everything is based on credit. And so then what it does is it deteriorates your capacity to have equity. And so, again, I'm not here to propose like a solution of all these different policy requirements. All I'm saying is, how about some national attention for this? How about
there's going to be
we have a conversation about it?
There's going to be a policy solution imposed on the rest of us, which is just stealing your stuff.
Well, that's the thing. So that's what this is where the continuum, whatever you want to call it, the spectrum, whatever DC term, we're here in kind of, again, I am a market guy. I like private property.
I agree.
I like trading. I like when I meet someone good at their craft and they're a carpenter or they're a small business owner. I actually want to save markets. And if we don't do something about this, you're going to get a Venezuelan-style youth-led revolt.
Exactly right.
And I am not exaggerating, because what I see right here is with this next generation, younger voters, young men in particular, they're going right. They hate all the cultural stuff. The trans stuff's driving them crazy. The hyper-feminization of the economy, which we should talk about, because I want to talk about that. The whole economy's become feminized the last couple decades, and no one has the courage to really talk about it. And
that's not just female empowerment. It's more than that.
No, because we went from blue collar jobs to pink collar jobs.
Okay. I don't want to, I can't wait, but I'm sorry to interrupt.
We could talk about pink collar in a second, because that's super important, because that's because male unemployment is significantly higher than female unemployment. But let's put a little button in that and just revisit in a second.
So if we want to prevent more Zohran Mamdanis, we want more people to own stuff. The more that we own homes, the more that you are able to own property, the more likely that people are going to embrace conservative policies and reject the more radical fringe elements of society. What is the driving force of Zohran Mamdani? The driving force of AOC and Bernie Sanders is they are capitalizing on economic resentment and bitterness. If you don't pay a mortgage, you're much more likely to go burn down a Wendy's, march in a BLM parade, become a radical environmentalist. It fills a purpose void that you have in your heart. Right now, young people, their entire lives are disordered, and it's up to us to try to reorder them. This is a very important part of the conversation that has gone significantly viral. Watch.
Political radicalism needs a catalyst. Political radicalism does not come out of peace, prosperity, rising wages, stable families, church attendance, and happy people. Happy people, grateful people, do not get behind Vladimir Lenin, and they certainly don't get behind Chavez or Castro.
That's right.
People that own nothing, that feel like their property is diminishing, or they don't have property, or their dollar is diminishing in value, they start to look for alternatives. And so the political project in front of us as conservatives should be, how do we actually de-radicalize the country in the next couple of years? That's my obsession. And that's why I say I try not to think about all this other stuff, because it just, it's so much brain space. My number one obsession is I know what is coming next, because nobody spends more time on college campuses than me. I hate to pull rank on that, but I spend 100 hours a semester on college campuses.
And you're getting no credits?
No, I get no credits for that. I still don't have a college degree.
I love that.
No, but I listen more, and that's the thing. I know hey, people ask all the time, hey, why do you do these campus events? Why don't you just give a speech? Because I listen as much as I talk. And I put my microphone down, and these videos have been seen around the world and people have grown familiar, but almost all of them are like, Charlie, I don't know what to do. like trading crypto till 2 a.m. and kind of, betting that the Green Bay Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. That's not enough for me. Charlie, what can we do? And one of the reasons they voted for Trump is they said, President Trump, please reorder this economy for us because it's severely disordered. And so the Republican Party currently is focused on a lot of stuff. I get it. You have a lot of constituencies to serve. But we have participated, we being the body politic, the last 20 years, especially the last 10, in a concerted effort of intergenerational theft. And if you don't care, Mamdani is just the beginning.
So someone, in the next 10 years is going to shut it down because the public doesn't want this at all. They don't want
shut what down?
Shut down just the parasite economy. Because it's going to get shut down. And everyone participating in it knows that. They're trying to steal as much as they can before it gets shut down. So the question is it shut down by Teddy Roosevelt or is it shut down by Hugo Chavez?
Well, and here's the brilliance of Teddy Roosevelt. So there's a lot of anti-Roosevelt fervor on the right.
There is?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, not a lot. I should say amongst the intellectuals.
They're the worst. Why do they dislike Teddy Roosevelt?
So part of it I get. Part of it is that he was...
The war craziness?
Well, actually, it's funny. He actually ended the Russo-Japanese War. I think he got a Nobel Prize for it, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
Did he get a Nobel Peace Prize for it?
I don't know.
But anyway, he deserved one. It was a bloody war. No, some would say that Roosevelt began the progressive era. I think that's an over description. I don't want to get into that because I'm not that interested in that. What I'm interested in, though, is how Roosevelt was one of the few powers to successfully manage the transition from the farms to the factories. And that's hard when you think about it. You have your entire population that is moving into cities. That transition, if done incorrectly, creates a ruling class that is untouchable. So Roosevelt was like, actually, I'm here to save capitalism. I'm here to save markets.
And he did.
And that is the enduring legacy of Roosevelt. Obviously, the national parks, which my wife and I are enjoying right now, and the untouched beauty, which I think is amazing. And just the fact that he was a hunter and outdoorsman and like a man's man and super masculine and all that was awesome. I don't love the fact he ran for president in 1912 out of bitterness, but that's a whole separate thing. He gave us Woodrow Wilson because of that.
It's hard to decelerate for guys like Teddy
I know the type.
Yeah, I do too.
But his legacy that I want us to, the Rooseveltian, whatever, I don't think that's the right term.
Let's coin it.
Let's coin the Rooseveltian energy or aura, to use a Gen Z term, is, hey, don't be ideological. Have a prudential aim. What do we want? We want an ownership economy. We want people that feel invested, that have real equity. So how do we get there non-ideologically? Because we actually want to preserve markets because we want a country. What I commonly say... Are
people listening to you? I hope people in charge are listening to you.
The president listens to me. He's amazing. People in Capitol Hill don't listen to me
They need to listen to you. What you're saying is true.
Well, thank you. And I am... This is going to sound really cringe, but like in some ways people have compared me to like Paul Revere, and it's like I'm warning of something that is coming. Yeah. Like the Bolsheviks are coming. I
wrote a book on this and no one paid any attention.
Well, I did.
But I'm saying it's gotten so much worse, and your explanation is so much more vivid than anything I came up with. And you have the credibility that I did not have, which is someone who's doesn't have a college degree and is constantly on college campuses. I hope they're listening, because this is the story.
This is the biggest story happening that has not yet happened. And that's what I always say, is that it's happening, but it hasn't yet happened on the front page. And when it does, don't be shocked when all of a sudden people are calling for a 75% wealth tax.
That's happening.
And they want a 50% tax on capital gains.
That's totally right.
And so what Roosevelt, just to complete the Roosevelt point, is that when you know what you want and you can aim towards it, you can shed yourself off the bumper sticker logic.
Yes.
And you can get towards something practical and prudent, real and beautiful. The best leaders in American history, the ones that are underrated, honestly, the Roosevelts and the Eisenhowers, they were non-ideological.
Exactly.
They were nationalistic. They were America first. They loved the country. And they weren't like caring about whether or not they were fitting a mold of a think tank white paper.
And TR was a sincere Christian,
Yes, and I believe Eisenhower was as well. I don't know. So the statesmanship dilemma of today is, can you either challenge or convince, because you have one of the others, the ruling class, that this is necessary. And I don't think convincing is going to work.
No.
So you have to challenge them. And hilariously, it's actually the best thing for them.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're coming for their mansions and they're coming for their assets and they're coming for their companies. And I don't want to live in that country. I do not want to live in South Africa. I don't want to live in a resentment, bitterness country where I have to drive around in armored cars all the time and I can't leave my house after 10 p.m.
Especially you.
We are seeing a potential immigration emergency. Tucker and I talk about how we must be very clear. No amnesty, no amnesty, no amnesty. Let me say it again. No amnesty. By the way, if you want amnesty, can you just email me freedom@charliekirk.com? Like, what is your argument? We didn't run on it. We don't need it. It's bad for the country. It's bad for workers. It's bad for young people. So please, if you are for amnesty, I'd love to hear from you and what strange, contorted view that is. I'd love to understand what possibly you're coming from, other than maybe you run a big hotel chain or a massive farm. Amnesty would break the back of this country and it would tear apart our coalition. So watch this about the immigration emergency.
We don't even know who lives here.
Well, that's a whole other component.
No, but I'm
of
just
this,
saying
but
that makes it more volatile. So if there is a severe economic contraction, and of course at some point there will be, you're not going to have a civilian conservation corps. It's like, because the country's inherently not united and citizens have nothing in common with each other. And like,
we're a nation of strangers.
Who are my neighbors? They don't even speak my language. They don't know what the Civil War was. We're not on the same page on any level. And they have expectations that are totally unrealistic because they were getting free stuff the second they got here. So like, man, this is an emergency, I think.
Yes, and it is a volcano waiting to explode. I mean, any one of your metaphors that you could put in, but we are a nation of strangers. The ties that bind us together are purely economic. If you think about it, it's not language, it's not culture, it's not religion, it's not,
shared history.
It's not any of that. We have, and this is the distinction, it's the dichotomy. I ask Republican leaders all the time, because voters get it. That's the thing. Do you want to be a country or a colony? What do you mean? Well, tell me the difference. Because I could tell you what a colony is. A colony is a place where everyone just kind of comes and they trade stuff and you have a good time and you kind of go in your own little corner, but you have nothing in common. It is the reverse colonization of America, which is the greatest of all ironies, right? Because we tried to do the colonization thing, but we are colonizing ourselves. You think about it, because we really don't have much in common anymore. We're kind of in our own little corner, and all that unites us is the dollar bill. And we're told that is the most important thing. Well, what happens when the dollar bill then shreds? You see, economic volatility is survivable if you're a nation of neighbors.
Exactly.
Because then you go to church and then you have commonality and you're like, you kind of bind together and you figure it out. Like the Great Depression, for example. We survived that because we were a different people demographically. We were different religiously. But when you're a nation of strangers filled with third worlders that don't really understand what this country is about and they're just here for free stuff socialism, watch out. This, again, I don't like the term emergency. I'm not challenging on it only because I don't want to do the Greta Thunberg thing where like the sky is falling.
Agree.
You know what I mean? It just drives me crazy, the over-catastrophization of American politics.
It needs to be addressed immediately.
But it will become an emergency. Like it is a canary in the coal mine. It's a harbinger. It is a sign. It's a warning of things to come that if I get 10 minutes with somebody, I think I can convince them it's kind of a problem-ish. But then as a step further, it has all these other secondary problems and third and fourth tier problems like birth rate collapse and marriage issues and young men not participating in the labor force. And then you don't have a civilization. And so I guess that's a long-winded way to say that almost every politician, when they run for office, will give some sort of euphemism, some sort of thing. I'm doing this because of my kids. And they bring up their beautiful family up on stage. You've seen this, 500 times. Are you really doing this for your kids? Are you really doing this for the next generation? Because if you were, you wouldn't be doing what you're currently doing.
This is just settling hard on me because you've confirmed and put a much finer point on a lot of things that I can intuit, I can smell, and to some extent see. But so when you talk to college kids, the first thing they bring up is money.
No, not always. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I mean, sometimes it's abortion, sometimes it's trans, sometimes it's foreign policy, but the undercurrent of anxiety is economic. I do get more economic questions than anything else, for sure, but I don't want to oversimplify. But let me also divide this into two different categories. So young women are doing much better in this economy than young men. For the first time in the last 30 years, young male unemployment's around 7%, young female unemployment's around 4%. So we are seeing the creation of kind of the lost boys. They're disappearing. They're leaving the workforce. We don't really know what they're doing all day long. You and I can speculate, but they're not. They're not reading. They're not reading Montesquieu.
If you have a whole society organized around hating white men, should it shock us that they're being destroyed?
No.
How is this an accident?
No, it's a deliberate, intentional campaign. And so what I find, young men are flocking to our events and they want meaning and they want purpose. And some of this is values. I don't want to say this is not all economics. I want to be very clear. But some of those,
You're making me so radical that my first thought was, make them a militia, Charlie.
No.
Arm them. No, sorry.
But disavow. No.
Disavow. You disavow that
Yes,
completely.
that's right.
I'm the lunatic here, not you. You are very, you've got a future.
Yeah, okay. But
Have you noticed the entire country has become more feminine? There's been a hyper-feminization of our workforce. Have you ever heard of the term pink-collar jobs? Well, we decided to no longer have blue-collar jobs, and we decided to have a pink-collar revolution. Well, the pink-collar revolution are HR managers, communication consultants, DEI, commissars, secondary teachers, and the pink-collar revolution has made us less productive, has made us less happy, and has put women that want to play mom at work because they don't have kids at home, so they have to go treat a bunch of 23-year-old men at work like they're kids. Ever think of it that way? I wanted to leave your comments here. How many of you are stuck in a pink-collar tyranny? How many of you work for a pink-collar autocrat? How many of you work for a pink-collar person where you say, honestly, just go raise your kids? Oh, wait, you don't have any. You have cats. You see, the problem with the pink-collar revolution and the pink-collar renaissance is it's inherently unproductive and it's hyper-feminine. It's pushing men out of the workforce and it's elevating unqualified, unhappy women. Watch.
So I mentioned this earlier. I want to dive into this. The entire economy has become hyper-feminized. The education system has become hyper-feminized. I'm sure you've heard those arguments.
We know that.
Got
a lot of kids.
Again, sit still, do what you're told, right? Read the hyper-feminine books. But you think about what are the jobs that have had the greatest emphasis of the credentialing, which basically is what college is. It's just a massive credentialing exercise. They're not the more masculine jobs that we need, which is like industrial engineering, or they're HR managers. They're norm enforcers. They're empathy driven. They're sociologists or DEI czars. And so thankfully we're finally pushing back on DEI, but a young man doesn't want to go be an HR manager. I mean, they would rather go to a WNBA game than be an HR manager. I mean,
that's a strong thing to say.
it's a coin toss. But
I don't think they're allowed to be HR managers, are they?
No, but that's
a straight man.
No, of course not. And so the entire economy, the push, the thrust the last decade has been, the growth has been in what we call pink collar jobs that men would rather sit at home and kind of just be, slovenly than be caught doing, because it's just so demeaning to how we as men are wired. They're not about creation or risk-taking or value proposition or, boundary pushing. They're kind of about, well, here are the rules and the norms and we must enforce them. By the way, there is a rule.
They're mom jobs.
Exactly. And you know why they're mom jobs? Because these women aren't moms.
Okay, now I think we need a militia, but whatever. Okay, now this is...
No, because you think about it.
Yeah, I have thought about it, but I haven't.
No, but
I haven't thought about it as deeply as you've thought about it.
I'm connecting the dots.
You are connecting the dots.
Because why are these women play mom at work? Because they don't have kids at home.
That's dark, man.
It's true.
So the effect is obvious. And all of this comes from economics. So those of us,
not all of it. There's values too,
of course, but to some extent, I just noticed that living in a predominantly black city and then spending part of the year in an entirely white area that had been deindustrialized, you saw lots of million differences. Well, there's no violence in the all-white area, for one thing, which I'm grateful for. Zero violence. But you did see similar family formation patterns where as the jobs for men disappeared, people stopped getting married.
That's right.
And so what I thought was purely about values, like decent people get married when they have children.
I totally agree with this, yes.
Turned out to be partly about values, but also the values were shaped by the economic realities.
Yes.
And women don't want to marry men who make less than they do, so they didn't get married.
It's the same reason why women don't like dating guys smaller than them.
Exactly.
Because they know intuitively at some point they're going to be pregnant and they're going to be vulnerable and they want a man to be able to defend them.
Yes.
And so, again, women my wife is right here, they have an interesting way of communicating. They won't put it as bluntly as I am right now. So let me just kind of put it all out there. Women deep down want to be protected and served.
Of course.
And so they don't want a guy that is earning less or that at some point they feel as if they're going to have to provide for.
Of course.
That is very off-putting. So Scott Galloway, who's a man of the left, he's actually done some really good scholarship on this. He's from NYU. He has a really important point that I think is necessary to hone in on. When women get disenchanted in the dating pool, they focus on friendships and work, which is totally true. They pour all their energy into either friendships or in work. We see that. Right. When men get disenchanted with the dating pool, they pull out from society basically altogether. Because you know why? There's like a hint of embarrassment and shame.
Not just a hint.
More than
it's the definition of shame.
And so
you can't provide, you've failed.
So the women they're more likely to graduate college. They're more likely to close on a home. They're more economically secure. They're also simultaneously, many of which are miserable. We know this. They're, the most incredibly addicted to antidepressants and suicidal ideation. The numbers speak for themselves. The most miserable women of the West are those that are unmarried without kids. The numbers know that. They speak it out. And again, this is materially true. We see this in our life.
Well, the rate of diagnosed mental illness is like off the chart.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just confirmation bias. I think we're looking for more of it so people think they have it more. But I will also say that you and I both see it. They're unhappier. This is an unhappier generation.
Yes, and let me just be clear. I think most diagnosed mental illness is a total lie.
Some of which is legit.
Of course,
you and I both know
is real, but yes. I mean, whatever. That's a whole separate conversation. I would refer everybody to Laura Delano, who was diagnosed with profound mental illness and recovered. I had a conversation with her earlier this summer that was one of the most, I'm still thinking about it. Let me just put it that way. So it's Laura Delano, as in Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
I'll have to check that out.
It's worth it. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, and so the entire configuration of the West has been to put men down and to put women up. And so what are the consequences of that? Declining marriage rates, declining fertility rates, and then a disordered mess. So I keep on going back to that word disordered. I think it's a very important word. We could use chaotic or we could use bedlam, but that is what young people are feeling. They can't always put it into words, but they're like, Trump, MAGA hat, something's wrong. Let's go to the Charlie Kirk event. And they're trying to piece this all together. They know something is just so off. They're like, women don't want to date me and I don't want to date them and everything's expensive and what's going on here? So the task in front of us as conservatives, and we're perfectly positioned for this because we're not people of the left. We don't seek to destroy or to burn, or we're arsonists, is to kind of reorder this, put it back together to say, okay, how did we go wrong? Too much emphasis on pink collar. So Larry Fink, who I'm not a fan of at all, from BlackRock, he said something very interesting that no one decided in the mainstream media to cover. He said, there's an urgent need right now for 500,000 electricians. 500,000 electricians. So here's a guy, the $10 trillion man. He's one of the largest funds he controls, which, by the way, he's also purchasing single-family homes, which are pricing families out of buying homes. We're going to get into that, I think, in a second, which I want to talk about. But here he's saying that there's a need for 500,000 non-college educated jobs. You're trying to tell me that we don't need more sociologists? We don't need more communication majors? And then
what about media studies?
Yeah, exactly. Media studies or North African lesbian poetry. And so we peel back this a little bit. We realize that one of the other reasons why men are being checked out of this whole system is that parents and the whole momentum behind young men have pushed them into a feminized system when in reality it would have been better for them to just not go to college in the first place and pursue just normal blue-collar trades, of which we have the greatest deficit in our country. But that part is this is not economics as much as it is social status. And you said this on your show once. It was a one-sentence thing I'll never forget, and I've repeated it like 100 times. Upper middle-class suburban parents do not want to tell their friends their kids are working construction.
Yeah.
I don't know if you even remember saying that, but
No, but I was forced to work construction by my father as a child, and it totally changed my life and my outlook on everything. And I made lifelong friendships, literally lifelong. And I remember I didn't force my own kids to work construction, to be honest.
And it's not even a matter of forcing
society changed so much.
Yeah, but it's almost...
Because when you destroyed the white working class, which they did on purpose because they hate them above all for some reason, when you destroy the white working class, then you have immigrants running everything at the bottom. And I'm not against immigrants. I like them, actually. But I'm not going to send my kids to work on a drywall crew where they're the only English speakers. So there's actually, it cuts off that whole... I worked in a factory. I worked at a gas station. I was a dishwasher in a restaurant. I worked construction. That's what I did in the summer for high school and college. And I was from a rich family, but that they made me do that. And it totally changed my life. But I wasn't unusual in that. I hitchhiked. They made me hitchhike too. My parents did. And that was pretty normal. And it wasn't that long ago. This was the 80s. Now you can't do that because no one else working those jobs has anything in common with your children.
That's right.
They're not from here.
They're strangers.
Exactly.
And on top of that, there is a belief by upper middle class America that those are the dirtier lower class jobs.
100%.
Don't do that.
They don't even speak English.
Yes.
So it's like not even a thing.
It's
so
a barrier to entry.
Have to send your kid to work at a clothing store in Martha's Vineyard because if you want to work, I'm serious. If you want a working class job, what else is there? Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly.
When I worked in a kitchen in 1985, everybody in the kitchen had a criminal record. Every single one. But of course, every dishwasher has been to prison for something, right? But they were all Americans and they all spoke English, and you'd like take a cigarette break with them and you could like talk to them, and they were part of your country and your culture. They were at the lower end. I'm from La Jolla, California. I'm with this guy, who's got tattoos on his neck and he's done 15 years for something awful, but like he was recognizable as an American. I'm not going to send my kids to a kitchen now. I'm sure they're better. I'm sure the Hondurans are better people than the people I work with, but they're not Americans.
That's right.
Ah!
And so what does all this mean? If these young men stay lost and they came out in huge numbers to vote for President Trump and we don't give them purpose, the civilization will collapse. You cannot have a generation of young men just check out.
And of course, the effort is to organize to destroy young white Christian men. Me, many of you in this audience. And if you're a young white Christian man, don't take any of this as playing the victim. Get your life together. Stop doing drugs. Stop watching the P word. I can't even say that here on YouTube. Stop drinking alcohol. Get yourself physically fit. Stop being overweight. Even though things are rigged against you, that is not a reason to play the victim card. Instead, it's the opposite. Listen to how Tucker and I talk at great length about how there is an organized effort to destroy and marginalize young white Christian men. Watch.
So when Biden says the number one threat are straight white men, which he said about 1 million times, or what are the white nationalism or Christian nationalism? He's talking about young white men. That's what he's talking about.
About me and the young men I represent.
Bingo. Those are just dumb euphemisms.
This is one of the reasons why.
But he's afraid of them.
Of course.
I get it.
The power of, again, I hate this racialization stuff, but it's true.
Too.
They force the racialization card. For the record,
of course.
I don't look at people in terms of skin color, but when they start categorizing me and the young men that show up to my events as toxic because they breathe, you force the race card. So, but the power of young white men in this country, if they were motivated and purposeful, yeah, young white men helped us win a world war and get to the moon and split the atom.
You better give him weed and fentanyl and benzodiazepines and DraftKings and porn just to kind of disable them so they don't rise up and eat you. That's what I would do. I'm just saying, like if I were in charge of society, I'd be like, holy shit, I'm afraid of these guys.
You're so right. And I try to, I listen to your show all the time, Tucker. And
sorry.
When you say stuff like that, I try to challenge it. I'm like, is it really a centralized conspiracy? I'm like,
no, it's a conspiracy of instinct.
No, but then I'm like, I got nothing.
But
it's like, if you were trying to make the most, by the way, if you look at just the genetics of it, like I'm Scots-Irish, I'm like a very disagreeable, boundary pushing, like rebellious. I know my genetic type. And by the way, genetics matter. We should talk about genetics more. It's not racist to say that. So my genetics come from all the way, from Scotland, from the Maxwell clan, fought alongside William Wallace. But if you want to like kind of calm down that kind of Appalachia fighting spirit, man, you would do what you're doing right now.
It's a Protestant spirit. I mean, let's just get
of course it is.
Let's just get really honest about it. It's the people who founded the country were Protestants. I'm as pro-Catholic as anyone could be. My best friends are Catholic. I'm
Calvinist too.
Not against Catholics at all. I love Catholics. However, this country was founded by Protestants because they think for themselves. And they're the legacy, they're the heirs of Martin Luther, who took on, the 1,500-year-old church by himself.
Totally.
They are people who believe they communicate directly with God, that their conscience is more important than federal law. And they're really hard to deal with. And so you have to destroy them first. And they did.
Well, they're not done yet. There's still a lot. And that's.
Well, I know some. I am one.
But by the way, even the young men that are currently lost, let's bring them back in. And that's what I'm saying.
I agree.
You can shed your addiction. You can give your life to Jesus. You can get your aim figured out. You can reorient your purpose. Again, Larry Fink is getting to something deeper. There's actually going to be a massive blue collar need for all this AI stuff or
whatever. We'll just import it.
Well, that's the kicker. So that's where everyone, I refuse to accept the premise that we need a bunch of H-1B workers and a bunch of foreigners. Meanwhile, the men of this country are withering away in a basement because they've been told they're toxic and terrible their entire life. And so, anyway, I feel a moral obligation to fight for the young men that show up to my event, and you could tell they're battered down. I mean, they've just been so suppressed by either the HR department or the pronoun policing or the hyper-feminization of their classroom, and they're like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I'm going to go play video games. I'm going to check out. And is that the right move? No, they should not do that. They should do what you and I do and get your life together. Don't be a victim. But they do it because you beat down a group of people so much over so long period of time. They're going to exit. They're going to cash out.
We've just been trained to blame them, though. It's so wild.
In all of our cinema,
I find it.
Why is it that Republicans are so quick to defend the evils of greedy corporations? Where does that come from? Well, Tucker asks a very provocative question. I give the best answer I possibly can about why we should have a more balanced and prudential view of corporations and labor, capital and labor. Watch.
And I find it also, I don't think a conversation has pissed me off as much as this one that I can remember.
Well, I hope I'm not pissing you off.
No, you're just, what you're saying is true. And that's why it's upsetting me. But I'll even say that about black people. I mean, I didn't grow up in a black neighborhood. I have a few black friends, a couple of good black friends, but I'm not like the voice of Black America. So it was easier for me to 100% blame black people for all the huge problems, like the overwhelming problems of Black America. But now I'm like, and that's to some extent fair. I'm for blaming the victim sometimes, but I'm also for acknowledging that there are other forces and economic forces really do matter, as noted before. And I just think it's so interesting in the people I know and grew up around with politically, they will never mention how this happened in the first place. They'll never blame the company. I don't know how we got to this place where we have to defend the company. I've worked for companies. They're horrible. They're anti-Christian. They're anti-human. They're greedy. And, they paid my kids' tuition all those years. I'm grateful and all that. But they're morally neutral at best. At
very best.
So why are we defending them? I don't get that.
Well, and at the very least, again, because wealth is important. We don't want to be a third world country, right?
No, I'm for wealth.
No, of course. We don't want to be poor. That should be the operative. Don't be poor.
Yeah.
But at the very least, we shouldn't have a gut instinct to defend them. We defend companies as if we're defending our children. No, they did nothing wrong.
That's so true.
Harry did nothing wrong, or it's as if you don't even know any of the facts, and immediately you're on ExxonMobil's side.
I never even defend my own kids that way.
Immediately you're on NVIDIA's side. And you're
totally
it's wait, hold on. Let's have a presentation of what's happened here. And
how did that? You're so much younger than I am, but you seem to have paid closer attention than I have, or been onto this more than I am. How did that happen?
I think it's a philosophical inheritance from the Rockefeller-Romney takeover of the Republican Party many years ago, well before I was born.
Yeah,
that's my best guess. Is that there was this anti-Soviet, anti-communist, anti-Marxist belief that was, kind of the connective tissue of what was Reagan's rise in the 80s. And therefore, again, we exist on these ridiculous binaries at times, which is fine. Some things are binary, like sex is binary, male, female. Other things are not, which is there's a lot of steps in between anarcho-capitalism and oligarchy-run capitalism, which is what we have right now. We have oligarchy-run capitalism and Marxism. There's a lot of steps on the continuum,
right,
from oligarchy-run capitalism to that. And so, but also if you look at the tax code If you look at the whole configuration of the current system, which again, credit to President Trump for finally putting a working class tax cut, no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. Finally, workers get something. But the whole configuration of the tax code is really rigged towards the big incumbent actors and the top 1% or the Pareto principle. I know I sound like a left-wing Elizabeth Warren person.
Who cares?
I don't care.
You've described the problem. It needs a remedy.
But here again, let me just kind of complete, the problem should not be how are we going to get the 1% to flourish? We shouldn't penalize them. But the question should be, how do we get the bottom 50% to have a little bit better life and their kids to have a much better life and their grandkids to have an even better life than that? That's the American project, is intergenerational wealth building, is that you're going to sacrifice a little bit, your kids will be better off. And this is the kicker. Why is it that these students are showing up in massive numbers to my events? Why do they vote for Trump? This is a fact. It is the first time since George Washington that this generation has it worse off than their parents at the same age. It has not happened, not even during the Great Depression. It was about the same. This generation is significantly worse off. And the problem, this is what no one mentions. We're not poorer. So you look at all these problems, you would think, like if you're from Mars and you're like looking at all these numbers, you would think that the country's gone through like an economic tailspin the last 15 years. Like, okay, your young people can't afford homes and they're putting groceries on credit and they're killing themselves and they're socially isolated and they're addicted to benzodiazepines and Zoloft. It's obvious you guys went through like a terrible economic catastrophe. Like
you lost a war, yeah.
No, the stock market's at record highs. Our companies are more valuable than ever.
Baby boomers. I'm sure there's a lot of baby boomers watching this right now. I have nothing inherently against baby boomers. My parents are phenomenal and they're baby boomers. But as a generation, Tucker has some thoughts. This is one of the more viral moments of our conversation where Tucker just torches the baby boomer generation. Do you agree with Tucker? Leave a comment.
So wait, we've solved the tough stuff. We know how to create wealth, but we don't know how to create it for the generation that needs it most. If you look at the economic conditions, you would think the other conditions surrounding it are like abject poverty. These are the problems that like third world nations have.
I know.
Our young people can't afford stuff and they have to finance their basic necessities. And yet we're the wealthiest nation in the history of the world on the planet. We have a $37 trillion GDP. We have the greatest companies and we have all this stuff to brag about. And yet all of our problems would beg the question, and it's like this inherent contradiction. We're super wealthy on one side, like a powerhouse juggernaut, and we are like an economic nightmare on the other side. How did that happen? Answer: the wealth went to older people at the expense of the next generation.
That's for sure.
Every single economic growth decision of the last 30 years has been made. I am going to benefit. My baby boomer generation is going to benefit. And I don't care if it hurts young people. And I'm not anti-boomer. I get negative hate mail all the time because the boomers are super protective of their generation, as if I'm like attacking Presbyterians or something.
They're repulsive. They've always been repulsive. I grew up in a world. I was born in 1969. The baby boom ended in 1965. So it was 65 or 64. Whatever. It was just the post-war generation, ended mid-60s. I'm not a boomer. Thank heaven. My father was not a boomer. He was born in 1941.
Silent.
Totally different attitudes,
Silent.
right? He was born before the Second World War, our entry into it. I was educated by them. They were my teachers. And they were the worst, the dumbest, most narcissistic, the shallowest. Every sentence had like 9 cliches in it. They were all at Woodstock. They remembered when Kennedy was shot. It was the day the music died. Like everything they said was like the Don McLean tune. It didn't make sense. It was just a series of evocative cliches strung together to create a feeling. They were idiots, but above all, they were about themselves. I hated them then. I hate them now. In 4th grade, I remember saying to a buddy of mine, I hate these people. Our math teacher just told us, I was at Woodstock. I was like, how many fucking people were at Woodstock? Like everyone in America was at Woodstock? I thought it was 300,000 people. They made it sound like it was, they're the worst. They're the ones who lecture us about the civil rights movement for 40 years as the actual supposed beneficiaries of the civil rights movement. Black people declined. They didn't care. They were only about feeling good about themselves. The only good thing they produced was like the music of 1972. Other than that, horrible people. Horrible. Sorry.
Well, and so, yes. So
I grew up with them.
That's okay. Everyone can email Tucker your hate mail when it comes to the boomer hate.
They're disgusting. And by the way, if you are a baby boomer, take some Take some responsibility for what you participated in.
That is the kicker. That's what I will say. You guys have had it great. You've had the greatest run. You've had what Eric Weinstein would call the ego, the embedded growth obligation, right? Ego, meaning things just keep getting better. The market goes up, your house gets more valuable, and you guys are trying to squeeze the last of a lemon, and you are leaving a crummy, unrecognizable serfdom in your wake.
Of course they are.
And it's bad for you. It's bad for your legacy. It's bad for your nation.
They're the ones who went right from protesting the Vietnam War to like making all this money on Wall Street. Remember Jerry Rubin was a yippie. I mean, this is before you were around, but
John Kerry went from, it's the whole thing. It was all live action role playing rebellion. It's LARPing is what it was.
I would just exclude anyone born between 1946 and 1964 from ever holding any office. And I know a lot of them, I'm sure they're nice people or whatever.
We like Trump.
But your generation, I forgot. But you're just, the whole generation is just rotten.
But let's extrapolate one part of it, which is that it's definitely that generation has not had a regard for leaving an economic.
They don't care about anyone but themselves. That's the whole point.
So if you employ that belief into fiscal policy and monetary policy, this is what you get. An intergenerational war.
Yeah, their grandchildren who they don't care about.
And so what I'm trying,
because they're on John's Island.
And, or wherever they are, right?
They're on John's Island, but whatever.
Well, yeah, and amongst other places.
No, I like John's Island. I'm just saying they're in retirement.
Yes.
And they're kind of psyched with what they have.
And their stocks keep on going up.
Yeah, and their grandson Dylan is like totally zoned out on prescription drugs, and they don't really care.
Right. Or if they are to impart some wisdom, it's, when I was your age, we worked 2 jobs and I was able to put myself through college and we worked really hard. And I'm telling you,
selfish people.
There are lazy people in Gen Z, of course. But honestly, the majority of young people I come in contact with, they're working their tail off. This is not a stereotypical lazy generation. I'm sorry. They're no lazier than some of the people I've seen in prior generations.
But if you give young
I will die on that hill. I'll defend this generation.
I mean, but young girls, I've got a lot of them, they're always buzzing around doing something. They're just self-directed. But young men, I think, that's why everyone likes to hire women, because they're self-directed. You give them a task, they'll do the task.
They're micro.
Why is it that so many young men are turning to Catholicism and Orthodoxy? I'm evangelical. But I see what young men desire and crave. They want tradition. They want order. They want things that do not change. They want a lasting structure that is going to withstand the passionate winds of modernity. And young men, in some ways, are coming home to the faith. Again, I say this as an evangelical, but I rejoice that young men are returning back to the church. It's a beautiful thing to witness. In fact, I encourage you right now, go find Jesus. Accept him as your Lord and Savior. Go back to church. Start reading the Bible. Stop doing drugs. It's the most important thing you can do. Watch.
100%.
Women are the best
amazing
micro.
at it.
And look what the scriptures tell us. And this is a very interesting thing. What did God say? He said, it's not good for man to be alone.
Exactly.
But he wasn't alone. He had God. What he was saying is that it's not good for man to be without a woman.
Well, of course.
And so it's not enough for man just to have God. And some people don't like this teaching, but it's true. Adam had God. He had a relationship with God. Man, if you look at almost every third world country where men don't feel that they are able to have economic prosperity or any romantic future, you get either revolution, gang violence, or complete disconnect.
Or suicide.
Which is what we have, right? So it's the most suicidal generation in history. Now, I don't want to paint a totally negative picture, because there is one really good trend, and it's not because of baby boomers, and it's not because of our leaders. It's that
I guess that.
Well, no, it's young men are going back to church. That is legit. That's happening because honestly, it's the only thing that they can find. It's a life raft in this just tsunami of chaos and disorder.
Agree.
So I get asked all the time, well, why are they going to the Catholic Church? Why are they going to Orthodox Church more than the evangelical church? And I'm evangelical. I'll say, well, first of all, they want something that has lasted. They want something that is ancient and that is beautiful, something that has stood the test of time, something that's not going to change, something that's all of a sudden not going to all of a sudden just flip around and have some sort of, transgender story hour. So that's a really positive trend in the midst of all this. So that's my great hope, is the spiritual hope that the young men that are lost, and if any young man is listening to this right now, stop watching porn, stop, smoking weed, stop drinking endlessly. Find yourself back to church. That will reorient your life.
I agree.
And do what the church tells you to do, right? Find a woman, marry her, provide, have more kids than you can afford. That's my advice for young men.
Yes.
Don't play the victim, even though you legitimately can play the victim card on everything we've said.
I agree.
The mindset of a victim is parasitic to your soul.
I completely agree. And you shouldn't whine.
Whining is bad. But that's our job. And just to be clear, so people say, but Charlie, you talk about this a lot from a whining standpoint. No. What I'm doing is I'm communicating to a very specific audience of people in charge that are ignoring this, and they are ignoring what's coming next. And that's the whole context of this conversation.
And then Tucker asked the question, will anyone be held accountable for the destruction of America's economy? Maybe. No one was held accountable after 2008 or the 2008 financial crisis. So I kind of shrug my shoulders and I say, I hope so. And the fact that no one went to jail after 2008 was a stain on our nation. How many of you guys saw your standard of living go down after 2008? How many of your friends, your family members, how many of you as kids remember it? It was a very vivid moment in my upbringing. Watch this.
I agree with you. I mean, I really hope that that people are listening to you, people in charge.
Thank you. I mean, the president does, to his great credit.
It seems obvious that everything you've said is true. And I just want to say for the 9th time, I really hope members of Congress will listen to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think it's the most important thing right now, because we are in the last stages of what we had and we're moving towards something new. This isn't working, and it's not working for the people it has to work for, which is the next generation. They're specifically the ones being hurt. And so they're going to be big changes, and people will be punished for what we're going through right now. There's no question about it, either from the right or from the left. And my concern is not preventing them from being punished. It's making sure the right people are punished. It feels to me like the greatest injustices are when we've solved the crime, but we executed the wrong guy.
Right.
And I just want to make certain that the predators are punished, the people taking advantage of desperate young people, the people who are, getting rich from payday loans and from, buy now, pay later for your pizza schemes. Like, those people should be crushed, and not, hardworking people. How do you make sure that punishment is allocated justly?
Yeah, well, first, this is why the right needs to administer it, because we would pursue justice where the left would probably pursue revenge.
Exactly.
And revenge is bad.
Exactly. Oh, so good.
But secondly, I hope you're right. I hope that the people that are doing bad here, which is plenty, will be held accountable. But there's no guarantee. No one went to jail after 2008. And I think that was a stain on our nation. I mean, I remember my family having to metaphorically and literally downsize after the 2008 financial crisis. I mean, that was a real turning point, if you will.
I had to sell my house.
Yeah, and we didn't, praise God, but I remember we didn't go out to eat for 6 months. It was a real trimming. And no one...
And you remember that. Did you connect?
Vividly, I was a freshman in high school.
And so you connected what was happening to your family to larger economic forces.
Yes, and a lot of millennials, which I'm a millennial, I'm the younger end of millennial, I'm almost Gen Z, have very similar stories as to mine, where they saw their parents have to downsize, trim vacations, cancel luxury items because of macroeconomic events. And I think it's still to this day a stain on our nation that no one went to jail for what happened in 2008. None of the bankers, none of the people were held accountable. And there's a lot that went into that. Obviously, the federal government was heavily involved, but we did the worst possible thing, which is we actually created and we codified the bad behavior by making the incumbent Wall Street banks even more powerful through Dodd-Frank. So it's harder for small and community banks to compete. And then we flooded the zone with cheap money. We went to basically zero interest rates, which then depreciated the dollar, which only hurt the next generation even more. So look, I would have liked to have seen, it's too late now, the statute of limitations is well past, perp walks for people that helped wreck the economy back in 2008 and 2009, because there was plenty of material there. So there's no guarantee that justice is coming. But I think this is different. I think this is far different because remember what I said early on. In 2008, the average first-time home buyer was 30 years old. Now it's 38. In 2008, you could have bought Apple stock for $6, $8. Now it's $180 to $200 a share or something. I mean, asset prices have ballooned so dramatically, and young people are so priced out of the entry point, let alone the completion point of the American dream, that I think you're right, that there will either be, this could be two ways. This will be a sloppy way to say it, but it can either be a storming of the Bastille or Nuremberg. And Nuremberg is orderly, and at least there's some sort of justice component.
With a Soviet judge in charge.
Well, sure. I mean,
So I couldn't.
It's not a perfect example, but
the guy who did the Stalin show trials, you put him in charge.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but at least there was a pageantry to it that we're trying to pursue justice. I don't want revolution. My whole temperament is anti-revolution. And so...
No, that's such a smart point. Any legal proceeding is flawed. I don't think you should put a Soviet judge in charge, but I think any judge is just a man or person, and you're not going to get absolute justice in this life. That is absolutely right. But it needs to be I think that's the key point. It needs to be orderly.
Yes.
And sensible and explain to the public there's a reason for this.
So another one is, again, one that we haven't even touched on is, are we ever, I think Trump is actually doing a great job of this, holding these colleges accountable, but is someone going to finally have to be on the hook for the amount of student loan debt this generation has? Can we seize and raid the endowments? These colleges are hedge funds with schools attached.
Exactly.
They're growing their endowments by hundreds % and their enrollment by like 3 to 4%. So their endowment is exploding and their enrollments are barely exploding, not to mention all the other problems embedded there.
It's the medieval church. It needs reform.
Yeah. And so I'm not here presenting all the solutions. Smarter people than me can kind of come through with a buffet line of solutions. My biggest contention is, why is no one even admitting this is a problem?
Right.
And that's what's so bizarre.
What is that? So we began on that question. I don't know the answer. What's your guess?
And again, I'm not doing one of those things where I ask the question rhetorically. I have guesses. The first of which is that it's so bad they're just ignoring it. And
right.
I really think that's part of it, which is that Congress is so filled with septuagenarians and octogenarians that it's so distant from their purview. They're way too concerned to send more money to Ukraine or whatever their primary priority is, that kind of representing the next generation, they're like, oh, those kids will kind of sort their way out. We had it tough too, which they didn't compared to what this generation has to go through.
Tucker asks, who will be the 2028 Democrat nominee? I'm not that interested in that, actually. We talked a little about AOC, Newsom. Watch Tucker and I go back and forth of who exactly very well might be the leader of the upcoming Democrat Party. Tucker has some very passionate views on healthcare. I've never heard this before. I'm not even sure what to think about this. It was definitely interesting. I want your comments below. I'm going to read all the comments, by the way. I love reading the comments. They're amazing. Why the modern view of life and death is so distorted and why we need a reassertion of a biblical one. Watch.
But secondly, I also think that the left will eventually wake up to this. I'm telling you. They're all a mess right now. They don't know which way they're going. But the Mamdani thing is a little bit of a trial balloon. They're like, wow, that's interesting. It's getting younger people interested and involved. And just remember, Bernie Sanders won the Democrat primary in 2016, and he won it in 2020 if it wasn't for the COVID lockdown. The base of the Democrat Party has been yelling about economic anxiety for 10 years before it was even nearly as bad as it is today.
You're right.
And so what we as conservatives need to be really concerned about, a cautionary tale, is a Democrat candidate or politician that says everything I've just said, that runs on basically resentment and bitter-driven politics. You own nothing because of these people. Let's go take it. And that's a little bit more sane on the trans stuff, the crime stuff, and the border stuff.
That's exactly right. And that's why I don't think Gavin Newsom has a real shot, because he's so transparently a tool of the ruling class.
Totally.
AOC obviously wants to run. She's dumb. That makes her a better puppet for a kind of fake economic populism. She's actually controlled by the banks and the neocons. But I don't know. If you had a candidate on the left who was even sort of genuine, there's kind of like a Tim Walz who, without the creepy personal life, who wasn't sending off kid toucher vibes like he is. Whoa. I'm not accusing him of kid touching. I'm just saying he sends off those vibes like
there's an aura there. That's
wouldn't
really
have
dark.
dinner with him. But if you had a slightly more normal person who was an economic populist,
totally.
Oh my gosh, that person would be emperor.
Well, I don't know about emperor, and I don't even know if I don't know if they'll. They're so off course on the trans stuff, the border stuff.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
And they're so married to those three things. But just all those things back, something is going to come. And
I wonder if they're married to those things because I have always sort of wondered, what is that? There's a lot at stake here. This is running the world, okay? So you don't just decide trans rights are central to your platform by accident. There's smart people thinking about this. And I've always wondered, was that a way to tame economic populism? Is the thing that the donors on both sides fear the most by far. they need a little bit of it in order to stop the revolution from coming, as you have said. You need a Teddy Roosevelt, actually.
Everybody needs it.
They're too greedy and stupid to realize that.
Short-sighted.
Exactly. So, but I always have wondered, like, what was the trans thing? Why, if I'm running the Democratic Party, I'm a huge donor of the party. I don't want, I may, like the trans thing or whatever, but I don't want to put that at the center of my platform because that's going to turn off all the normal people. Like, I'm going to lose with that. It's too bonkers. Maybe that was inserted into the dialogue on the left to really kind of stop the Sanders insurrection forever.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean,
or am I being too
no,
crazy?
I mean, I always,
because Sanders is what they feared most.
Sanders would have given any candidate, including Trump, more of a run for his money in 2016. I think Trump would have beat Sanders, but like Sanders would have campaigned in Michigan.
Oh, big time.
Sanders would have campaigned in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of crossover of Bernie Sanders Trump voters.
Oh,
like that exists, right?
I mean, Sanders is a fraud or whatever you think of Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
A total fraud. However, a sincere Sanders, I think, would be unstoppable.
Yeah. I'm less interested in the biography or the person of where the Democrat Party is going.
I agree.
I'm much more interested in the movement that obviously is coming next. It's just so it is manifesting. It's bubbling up, and so we on the right, we should exist to de-radicalize, to create normalcy and order and a regular America, the good America that you and I miss. And so, as far as the trans stuff, look, there's a lot of theories on this. Number one, I think that there's an element of the Democrat Party that's into really creepy, weird sex stuff. And
religious stuff.
And I
dark.
think there is a religious element to the trans thing, which is I take dominion over my body.
Exactly. I'm God.
Where if you think about the Christian element, which is that we surrender our body to the Almighty, our body is a temple, right? God made us in his image. Where the trans thing is, no, I make myself in my image. It's diametrically against every one of the teachings of Christ and of those scriptures. It's against the distinctions between what is holy and profane and what is good and evil. Child and adult are blurred in the trans thing, male and female. So I think that there's like a irresistible temptation amongst the kind of dark base of the Democrat Party, which exists, that they just had to just like hold on to this because, again, it's the snake eating itself. Progress knows no limits, right? So it goes from homosexual marriage to eventually, gay adoption to then finally, to transgenderism. But I think you're getting onto something important. From a corporate media standpoint, do I think that Pride Month is emphasized more for a reason? Almost certainly. Because I think it's a smokescreen grenade to make us kind of be unsure of where we're going, so no one actually talks about economic and wealth inequality.
We don't have Get Out of Debt Month, I noticed.
No, and if you want to be even more, if you want to be even more,
I don't think we're getting one either.
Want to be even more provocative, one of the 613 laws of Judaism and one of the more beautiful teachings is called the Year of Jubilee, which is every 50 years is debt abolition and basically the rectifying of your financial situation for the nation of Israel. It was in law every 50 years.
Because the religion recognized, I think as all religions do, that debt is slavery.
Well, it says that in Proverbs 7:22, where it says basically, like if you borrow money, you are a slave to the lender.
Of course.
Repeated all throughout the Torah, all throughout the Old and New Testament. And so now here we are in a modern context. Again, a little bit of debt is justifiable, mortgage, maybe, but another one that we haven't even touched on that is crushing people. Democrats are starting to talk about this more, is medical debt. Oh, it is crushing people. They go to the ER for just, a broken leg and they have a $7,000 bill and they are just murdered by those bills for the rest of their life. And so you have medical debt, you have credit card debt, you have personal debt, you have student loan debt.
Do you ever notice there's a disconnect between voters and American lawmakers? What Republican would you like to see primaried most? Go in the comments and tell me, or email me, freedom@charliekirk.com. Is it Lindsey Graham? Is it Mitch McConnell's open Senate seat? What Republican senator do you think most needs to lose? Be curious to hear. Again, email us, freedom@charliekirk.com, and watch this.
There's something kind of sad about the emphasis on healthcare, too. I'm all for healing. I've been to I had appendicitis, back surgery. I mean, I've been saved by surgeons, and I am grateful. However, if like the most important economic sector in a lot of parts of your country is healthcare, what is that exactly? Shouldn't you be focused on like producing life?
100%.
And not just like say, and I say this as a middle-aged person who's past the age of producing life, but I think like there's something, it lacks energy. It's too inward, like, oh, what about my health care? Oh, shut up. Oh, shut up.
It's also inherently bureaucratic.
No, but it's also like, shouldn't you be, I don't know. I'll tell you how I feel about my life. It's like getting older, probably going to get physically decrepit at some time in the foreseeable future. That's inevitable. That's nature. That's like, I have that in common with every person who's ever lived. I will die. And if you can't accept that, if you're a baby boomer and you think the point of living is to go on vacation, which they do because they're selfish and stupid, I don't know. That's like, you're missing life. Actually, the point of life is to produce new life and then help it thrive.
Yes.
There's an energy there. Teddy Roosevelt died. I think he was younger than I am now when he died. Does anyone think Teddy Roosevelt didn't live a life?
He lived a very full life.
He lived a life. And I don't think Teddy Roosevelt in his final moments was like, oh, damn, I've been cheated. If only I could get to Barbados. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like there's something sad about everything is about maintaining an increasingly declining quality of life. Healthcare. What about building something?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm not
no,
being
I think
articulate. I just hate it. It's sad.
And it's all, if you look at, yes, the prior generations had a different moral view, which was far less about getting another 15 years on your life expectancy. It was about, how are my kids doing?
Yes.
If you just look at it from pure economics, again, I'm not a eugenics guy.
Do I have a mission?
Yes.
Am I making something?
Exactly. And what are you leaving? And right now, and again, I'm not here to like make people feel bad if you're over the age of 70, you're leaving a crappy country for your kids. Trump is fixing it. He's working his tail off, but there's structural stuff that he's going to have to fight like hell.
Also, stop talking about your illnesses. I don't like that. Stop that. My father died at 84. He had like a million illnesses.
That is definitely.
I never knew what they were because he never mentioned them.
But by the way, that's very waspy. Not to talk about.
He was.
No, not to talk about your health stuff. But like 70 plus a tick is like all your health stuff is like the only dinner conversation, right?
Are you joking? I remember thinking, my father always say when he got old, these old people, all they talk about is their health. It's so boorish and self-involved and boring.
But it's also, if you think about it, it's not very Christian.
No.
Because we're just here temporarily in the Christian view. There's an afterlife for us. There's the next life. Our bodies will actually resurrect.
Yes.
Christ our Lord will come back and reign over this earth in the 1,000-year millennia. So we shouldn't be overly fixated on.
But until that happens, they're rotting. We're all rotting.
By the way, it's like.
So just like deal with it, accept it.
Yes, exactly. You have an expiration date.
Yes.
And God is in charge of that. So what do you do with that?
Amen.
And so if you look at the biblical figures, they weren't like overly interested in like, mastering the back nine,
No.
At the Naples Country Club.
No.
It was God wants us in 4 words: love God, love people. And we've done a very poor job of that in the West.
I agree. Wow, Charlie, you've really, really spun me up. So how do you get this message? So we've had a conversation for an hour and a half, kind of on what I think and you clearly think is the single biggest and least addressed issue going forward, which is how are we serving the next generation?
Amnesty is being pushed, everybody, not by President Trump, but by many of his enemies on Capitol Hill. Maria Elvira Salazar and others are trying to push for mass amnesty. We tried this in 1986. It does not work. It does not win us over Hispanics. It does not put the country together. It is a mass amnesty scam. We must stand against it. We did not run on it. We do not want it. Here's more of my conversation. By the way, before I go to that, I encourage you guys to get involved with Turning Point USA at tpusa.com. Started a high school and college chapter today. Turning Point USA is incredibly important, and we have an amazing campus tour that is coming up this September, October, and November on campuses across the country. So make sure you guys check it out, tpusa.com.
But you also spend an awful lot of time like in actual American politics and the mechanics of it. How do we get people elected? How do we get people out to vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Can you just be a little more precise? So every lawmaker, certainly Republican lawmaker. Why isn't, what is so hard about what you just said for them to understand?
Well, a lot of them only represent, they only represent their voters just as kind of as an act. It's not an actual thing that they do. I think of Lindsey Graham. And look, Lindsey Graham, I'm sure if we had him here, he'd tell hilarious jokes.
The most charming member of the Senate.
I'm great. I'm sure.
He is. He's smart. He's charming.
But
great guy.
But does he represent like the economic anxieties of a 24-year-old welder in Columbia, South Carolina?
No.
I mean, of course not. But part of the problem is, and we're trying to fix this at Turning Point Action, is actually the process of how difficult and how expensive it is to get good people elected in office. We haven't figured it out, but we're working on it. So we're engaging in Republican primaries and across the country.
So Lindsey Graham's primary, I think Lindsey Graham is up soon. I say this as someone who has enormous affection for Lindsey Graham personally because he's enormously likable. But he can't if he gets reelected to the Senate, then it's all fake, obviously. He has zero interest in America. He only cares about hunky Ukrainian soldiers or whatever his trip is with them. He needs to lose just in order for the system to stay viable and real. How hard would it be? I'm going to do whatever I can to help him lose because he does need to spend time in retirement. How hard is that?
It's going to be very difficult.
Why?
Well, for a couple reasons. He's going to have a ton of money, probably have tens of millions of dollars to spend.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Senate leadership will most likely pour a lot of money behind Lindsey Graham. His numbers are underwater, but also he'll try to make a mess of things. There'll be other candidates kind of thrown into the mix to try to split the vote.
Yes.
Remember, it's a plurality, not a majority. I don't think they have a runoff system in the South Carolina primary. I don't want to speak out of turn there. But senators are really, really hard to come by that are decent. Mike Lee is a great example of a decent person in the U.S. Senate. He is a great person. There's not many of them that are actually decent and that...
Eric Schmidt's a good man.
I agree with you. Eric is a really good dude.
I agree.
Yeah.
Just like as a person.
He's a Cardinals fan, but besides that, he's a great person. But no, look, as far as how hard it is, this is why what we are doing, I think, is very exciting at Turning Point, but also simultaneously a threat to the Republican establishment. Is that we're big, we're not going anywhere, God willing. We're loud, we're young, we're energetic, we're principled, and we're kind of new right.
Yep.
Because we're not part of this whole neocon, invade the world, invite the world. And we got to talk immigration too, because that's a whole component of this, because amnesty is going to try to be pushed by some people soon. But we're a different flavor. We represent a generation primarily that is mad, that is angry, but we want to channel that frustration into a prudent way because, again, we don't want a revolution. So we're a threat to the established Republican order, and we kind of delight in that in more ways than one. So look, we're going to be involved. Other one that we're really involved in is Kentucky for Mitch McConnell's empty Senate seat there. Nate Morris, who's phenomenal, who's actually running on an immigration moratorium up against kind of two of McConnell's lackeys there in the open Kentucky Senate race. And here's the thing. If we or anybody were able to take out Lindsey Graham, that will send a signal to the rest of the conference.
I agree.
That will be such a definitive signal. And so, look, we're gonna involve ourselves in many races. We'll see if we do Lindsey Graham. We most likely will. We had Andre Bauer at our event. We're also going to be really involved in stuff in Arizona because we got to kind of get some things sorted out there. But more importantly is that there, and this is the other structural problem. What we at Turning Point Action, specifically our political arm, seek to do is try to make Republican voters back into alignment with their elected leaders, because there's a misalignment that's happening. And Trump was the one that exposed this alignment for the record.
That's for sure.
He's like, wow, you guys are totally not in alignment on your worldview. And I think Lindsey Graham is a perfect manifestation of that.
That's it. It's not personal.
It's not at all.
I'm so mean to Lindsey Graham, but it's not personal. It's just that the system is fake if Lindsey Graham keeps getting elected in one of the most conservative states. That's all. And the system can't be fake or else you have a revolution. And I don't want a revolution. So you did this. You're very close to President Trump, I think personally and politically. You did this amazing thing the other day where you tweeted out, amnesty's coming. People are pushing amnesty. You don't have to answer if you don't want, but my sense is that the president was part of your intended audience. You just wanted people to know what was going on. And bless you for doing that. But I wasn't exactly sure what you were talking about. Who is pushing amnesty and what form could it come in and how imminent is this threat?
Yeah, and well, firstly, the president has said no amnesty, which is great to hear. And I'm glad he's saying that. He should keep on saying it because he ran on that. And so I was not surprised when he said it, but he needs to say it. But look at Maria Elvira Salazar. I think that's her name, right? She came out the other day and she is pushing an amnesty bill through Congress. I have a text from a U.S. senator that you and I both respect. And he said, look, there's whispers that are now becoming real conversations and chatter of amnesty. And think of how sick and dark this is. We passed one big, beautiful bill, which is by far the greatest fortification of the southern border, the greatest deportation effort that we need. I mean, it's legit investment to get the deportations that we voted for, and that the ink is not even yet dry of President Trump's signature. And almost simultaneously, we're hearing about amnesty. And so, look, Maria Elvira Salazar, she's saying, well, if they've been here more than 5 years, it's not a pathway to citizenship, it's a pathway to dignity. Let me tell you exactly what would happen.
How about get out?
Well, of course, hasta la vista. How about that, right? And so, but let me be even more clear. We have no documentation of anybody that's in this country. Undocumented is not the proper term, but it's not totally incorrect. So all that someone would have to do, let's say an ICE agent knocks on the door of somebody and they have deportation order, you are going home. All they'd have to say is 5 años, 5 years. And they could end all deportation in real time. So the person's been there for 3 years and they'd have to just say they've been there for 5 years, lie, go to some judge that would take them 4 years to get in front of the judge, and they'd hit the 5-year threshold. It's effectively amnesty and a loophole workaround being pushed by Miss Elvira Salazar. And I don't know
She's a Democrat?
She's a Republican, which the whole thing doesn't make any sense. First of all, she's from a Cuban district, and why a Cuban district is so worried about like mass illegal immigration is very bizarre to me, unless she has a bunch of constituents that are doing visa overstays. Because it's not exactly like southern border central there.
I think she's just a leftist.
I don't know what she is, but it's very perplexing. Number two, though, we're winning Hispanics in record numbers because we're strong on the border, because we're strong on deportations. Because she's like, oh, if we don't save this, if we don't solve this problem, we're going to lose Hispanics for a generation. We're winning Hispanics because we're hard on immigration. We're winning.
Also, what about everybody else?
Well, yeah, how about like, exactly. And then that goes to the thing, the core essence of, what about the actual American people that have not been represented the last 50 years in our government?
Your ancestors are here for the Civil War, okay? That was, 160 years ago. Seems like you should have a say in all this.
My family came here in 1620, Alphonsus Kirk. We've been here for a while, 400 years.
Yeah, so, I don't think you should get 2 votes or anything, but I also don't think that we should ignore you on purpose, and it's like, be quiet, Maria Salazar. Who are you anyway? Stop.
When she does this ridiculous thing, she says, we're going to try to have this Salamic compromise of splitting the baby, which, by the way, it's not even what happened in First Kings. It's a whole separate issue we could talk.
So why would you want to cut a baby in half, you freak?
She literally said that on TV. I don't know if you saw that clip.
She's obviously dark.
Yeah. But also, the fascination of the ruling class when it comes to amnesty is very, very sinister. And
it's like abortion. They just can't give it up.
It really is. And I've had amnesty pitched to me multiple times in every one of the ruling class havens you can imagine. I never get amnesty pitched to me on either a college campus from like a work or like in Columbus, Ohio. Like when I go to a football game, no one's pitching me amnesty.
But never want amnesty there's never amnesty for bank robbers or drug dealers or people convicted of hate crimes. I notice it's only
such a good point.
For illegal aliens.
Such a good point.
And why is that? Because they don't like the people who live here and they want to change the population. That's why.
It's about mass demographic replacement.
Of course.
Because if you can't win over the population or if you hate the population, which they do, then you need to replace that population.
Of course.
And again, this is the great replacement reality that is happening in real time. And so we finally have this mandate, and God bless Stephen Miller. He's fighting his heart out every single day to get this deportation effort underway. And the president ran on this, and the president is committed to this, and the president is going to get this done unless these people in Congress try to get in his way, which is that we need to deport 20 million people. This all goes full circle, by the way, back to the young people conversation. It's just the 2010 strategy. We need to build 10 million new homes and make sure private equity cannot buy them. And we need to deport 20 million people. We do those two things, we're going to be in a much better place. However, we voted for it. We have a president in office that wants to do it, that is doing it. And yet there are several congressional actors that are trying to undermine him right now.
What about the pressure you keep hearing about from different sectors? Hospitality, I think that's real. Ag, I don't know, is that real? I mean, who is pushing this other than
the corporate titans for sure?
Yeah.
I mean, so the ag one is interesting because we're told that we need to have mass immigration or else the crops will rot in the field, which is interesting because I thought we're going through like a moment of mass automation right now.
I kind of thought that.
So what's the argument now for mass immigration if robotics is going to take over everything?
Well, Elon just sent a video out this morning of a robot making popcorn. So if a robot can make popcorn, he can pick lettuce, I think.
I would imagine. So maybe it's not about picking the crops. Maybe it's about the fact they want to change the demographics of this country.
Yeah.
And but secondly, The hospitality one, maybe, I guess, sure. How about this? Hire Americans and pay them more. There's a 7% young male unemployment rate. Remember, I said that earlier. Wait a second. 7% unemployment used to be called a crisis in this country. That was during the Great Recession. Remember, we got up to 8 to 9% unemployment. So maybe we should go hire some of the young men that are on the sidelines of this economy and make this a nation again, not just an economic dumping ground for the third world.
So you often hear people say, well, I would love to do that, but the native whites won't work hard. Okay. I don't know. There's something about mass immigration that degrades the existing population. People get less impressive when their country's invaded. I don't know why that is. I've always noticed
the
that.
UK is a great example of
it. It is a great example.
Totally agree.
The Brits themselves, it's like, I go to the UK, I have family there, I go there, all my life I've gone there, and you see, I always kind of like the Brits. They're weird, but I sort of like them. Creepy kind of, but whatever. But they've gotten weirder and creepier over time. As it's become more Pakistani, the native-born Brits, the white Brits, have become way less impressive. I'm not imagining this. Or do you know what I'm talking about?
But also the morale goes down. It's almost like you're a conquered nation and you know it. London was 95% white in the 1920s. It is now 29% white.
Yeah.
Now, again, I don't think whites are better than other people, whatever, but it's just not London anymore.
They're the indigenous population.
It's something, exactly. And I thought we're against mass replace. That's ethnic cleansing, isn't it?
Well, it's literally ethnic cleansing.
I thought, we're, lectured all the time about ethnic cleansing.
If it was happening in Tibet, which it has.
Again, I'm not for that, wherever it is.
I agree, but if you replace Tibetans with Han Chinese, no one's like, they're all Tibetans. They're all Tibetans. It's like, no. It's a strategy designed to replace the Tibetans.
And again, if something fails, when you change the people, it fails to be what it once was.
Of course. But it has a dispiriting effect on the people being replaced. And they're not what they were all of a sudden.
It's hard to measure, but it's so true.
It's so noticeable.
It's noticeable. You feel it. You see it. Again, this is what's so important about conservatism in the new era. A lot of what drives us will not always show up on a chart or a graph. Because look, a lot of this I talked earlier is like numbers of, home ownership, but something as simple as that is so true. Their morale is down. They believe goofy and weird stuff.
Oh, I agree.
They almost have this strange fetish in London that they like being conquered.
Oh yeah.
That they're like enjoying the slow motion rape of their country.
Invade me harder.
No,
Daddy.
It's like, no, seriously.
Oh, I agree.
It's like this weird sexual attitude.
Agree.
Like, yes, Islamist, come into my country. Like, what?
No.
And it's just, I don't know what that is, but I will say this though. I will make a hypothesis though.
It's the immigration cuck, I think we would say.
No, it is though. But
no.
A secular nation cucks out for sure.
100%.
And so what does that mean? When you don't believe in a divine power, they're super secular in the UK. Then all of a sudden they need to have some sort of belief system. So their reason for being is that their master is some Mohammedan from Afghanistan.
It's totally right.
And again, I debated at Oxford and Cambridge back in May. These are broken, conquered cities and towns. They're completely unrecognizable. London especially is just gone. It's a husk of its former self, as you would say. It's a museum.
Depressing.
It's depressing. It brings down your soul.
I agree.
And when I go walk through Piccadilly Square and there's just more Muslims than native-born whites, or there's something wrong about that, and that is a metamorphosis and you have to wonder, did you vote for this? Did you want this? Did you invite it? And so
it's something about the two, it's the way it happened, it's the scale of it, and what's really a head trip, which I'd recommend to anyone, is going from London to Riyadh or London to Dubai or London to Doha. I've done all of that. And you're in London and you're like, man, we've got a huge problem with Muslims. They're bad. And then you go to Doha or Riyadh or Abu Dhabi or Dubai or any of the Gulf. And you're like, man, I love Muslims because they're awesome.
So how do you...
I don't understand exactly what's going on, but it has to do with, and let me just say, in point of fact, I've never been, where I am not currently anti-Islam, especially. It's not my religion. I disagree. I think it's wrong, but I'm not mad. And I'm not mad at Gulf Arabs. I think they're amazing. They're amazing. They couldn't be more tolerant, open-minded, kind. Just great. I mean, things I don't agree with, but in general, they're great. And I have even said, because you can say whatever you want in their countries, because as long as you're not attacking the leadership, They have free speech in a way that we don't, which is really wild. But I've said at dinner, like, what is that? Why am I so happy here in, pick the Gulf capital versus London? And what is the deal with the Muslims in London or Cologne or Berlin or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, what is the difference? I've never gotten a straight answer. But I do think part of it is mass migration of any kind is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And it has bad effects on everyone involved. The immigrants and the conquered.
And also, I think that there's just a lot of third world Muslims that have
Well,
come.
there's also that.
Doha is a very very...
Well, there are 300,000 citizens.
Right.
In the
First,
richest
Abu
country.
Dhabi, Dubai, Riyadh are very first
But the
world.
people
but
are.
Karachi is not exactly.
No, Karachi's pretty intense.
Is it?
I would say Karachi's pretty intense, yeah.
I wouldn't put Pakistanis up with...
No, though, I've
Saudis.
had amazing meals with people in Peshawar, Pakistan, who are like reading P.G. Wodehouse novels and are super smart and have all these languages and stuff. I don't know. There's something about immigration, the mass migration, that degrades everybody involved. I just noticed it. This is not an ideology that I have. It's just something I've picked up from traveling a lot.
And you just become... So you have two options. I mean, and the UK has decided just to kind of just bend over and take it.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just, you can fight it and resist it.
Well, they've been doing that for a long time.
No, that's kind of their whole shtick.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, post-World War II.
With a cane.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just... That's their whole thing.
Can President Trump fix the immigration crisis? I make a bold prediction here. We need a lot of deportations, and I put numbers on it. Watch the end of our conversation.
But in America, we're finally having a different attitude to mass immigration, which is we can now talk about it, we can question it, we can vote against it. The question is, can we remove it? And that, again, that's one of the biggest public policy challenges in front of us. Can we remove the 20, 30, 40 million people that have come here illegally? And what President Trump is embarking on doing is one of the hardest, most difficult things that we could possibly comprehend.
Do you think it has a shot?
I think we can get to 10 million this term. And that would be huge. If you count self-deportations, for sure.
Wow. Are we on track to do that?
We have 1 million self-deportations already, guesstimated. And I could tell you anecdotally in Arizona, like a construction project happening right down the street from where we live, they said that whole crew of, kind of laborers self-deported. They hired Americans the next day, or at least people that were here legally. So there is anecdotal evidence of self-deportation occurring. And the margin, at least under Eisenhower, when he did mass deportations, is 10 people self-deported for every one forcible deportation. And so CNN just did a special of a guy and his family that's self-deporting from Pittsburgh, adios. So look, I think the goal needs to be 10 million this term. 10 million would be a massive accomplishment. That would make the country a considerably and measurably better place.
Is there any effort or even conversation about getting the refugee system under control?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, I think that, first of all, it's a scam.
Why do we owe refugee status to anyone? No one's ever explained that.
I don't know if again, this is a really important point. Almost all of the excesses, mass migration, refugee, is because the left has weaponized inherited Christian principles against us. So we as Christians, we have an open-heartedness towards refugees. It says what we should do that in the scriptures. Doesn't mean that we should do that blindly. So what the left does is they take good-hearted Western Christian beliefs and they totally weaponize them for their kind of remake the body politic of America.
But here's what I find so unchristian about our refugee system, even before the left distorted it, or maybe they distorted it from the beginning, is Christian charity is the responsibility of the Christian. So all these Christian groups and Jewish groups and lots of different groups, but a lot of Christian groups, Catholic Charities, Lutheran Social Services, all these groups that use the gospel to justify it, bring in families or individuals and then offload the cost onto taxpayers. It's like, how does that work? How is it charity?
Totally.
If I take your money and give it to somebody, do I get credit in heaven for stealing your money and giving it away? I don't think so.
Yeah, and also it says in the book of Deuteronomy, one of the last things Moses says, it's his farewell address, like Deuteronomy 28, off the top of my head, be careful who you allow within your gates, within the country, because they will soon become your masters.
Well,
and boy, is that not
well, we're about to find out how true that is.
Phenomenal truth from the scriptures, as always. But look, I know the Trump administration and President Trump, they're trying to strip refugee status of the 500,000 Haitians. I mean, that is just grotesque,
I would say.
And so I think every single one of them has to be returned back to Haiti. By the way, it's like this great contradiction. Haiti is a wonderful place that everyone should go visit, the left tells us, but they don't want Haitians in their neighborhood. It's It's like, okay, well, which one is it exactly?
Haiti is an amazing place. It's the best place ever. It's not a shithole nation at all. It's incredible. Stephen Colbert actually goes on vacation there. But everybody in Haiti needs to get out immediately because it's exactly so terrible, and you have to pay for it.
It's so wonderful that they have to be allowed to leave to your community, but not my community.
So, I just hope that this last 2 hours, that every member of Congress sees what you said. I was like trying to keep up with your analysis, which is the sharpest I've ever heard on that subject. Like, what is the crisis among young people? I think you described it better than anyone, and I really hope people listen to what you're saying.
Well, thank you. And I mean, we cover this on our show every day. People can follow the podcast, and thank you, Tucker, for your leadership on this. Look, there's a lot of issues to cover, but this one is going to supersede every single one.
I think that's right, because it's going to be President Mamdani. And he's not even a real socialist. He's just a trans nonsense lifestyle liberal bullshit like all of them.
He's a demon Marxist, right?
Exactly. If he was like a wobbly, at least I'd be like, respect. But no. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Charlie Kirk.
Thank you.
So it turns out that YouTube is suppressing this show. On one level, that's not surprising. That's what they do. But on another level, it's shocking. With everything that's going on in the world right now, all the change taking place in our economy and our politics, with the wars we're on the cusp of fighting right now, Google has decided you should have less information rather than more. And that is totally wrong. It's immoral. What can you do about it? Well, we could whine about it. That's a waste of time. We're not in charge of Google. Or we could find a way around it, a way that you could actually get information that is true, not intentionally deceptive. The way to do that on YouTube, we think, is to subscribe to our channel. Subscribe. Hit the little bell icon to be notified when we upload and share this video. That way you'll have a much higher chance of hearing actual news and information. So we hope that you'll do that.
Everyone, I want to hear your thoughts on my conversation here with Tucker Carlson. Leave some comments. Make sure you hit that bell and hit subscribe. Share this video with your friends. And as always, you guys can communicate with us directly in the comment section. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. And again, make sure you guys check out AmericaFest at amfest.com. Take out your phone and subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. That is the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. Download a couple episodes. Get your friends to do the same. Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. You can listen to all of our episodes in real time whenever you would like. That is the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. Download a couple episodes and just do me a favor. Text this video to your friends right now. It is going very, very viral. And thank you, Tucker Carlson, for having me sincerely. And thank you. Tucker gave me the green light when I sat down with him. He said, Charlie, clip this up and send it out far and wide. Well, thank you, Tucker. There's a real crisis and emergency happening with Gen Z. They are getting poorer. They are not getting richer as proportion of their purchasing power. And it is a financial emergency. If we do not fix it with prudence, if we do not fix it with practical judgment and wisdom and resist ideological fervor, you're not going to like what happens next. It's going to be Mamdani on steroids coming to Birmingham, Alabama, Wichita, Kansas, Des Moines, Iowa, Denver, Colorado, Flagstaff, Arizona. We need to calm this down. We need to make young people owners again. Make Gen Z owners. When young people own stuff, all of a sudden their life starts to get ordered. We are seeing mass disorder, mass calamity, mass disillusionment, mass chaos, and we seek here to try to fix it. This conversation is only the first step that I hope can be a serious national project where we have 20 million deportations, 10 million new homes, and a moratorium on legal immigration until we can figure out what the heck is going on. This is a national project that will counter whatever the left has. We do not want free stuff socialism. We do not want the confiscation of wealth. We do not want to see businesses have their stuff taken from them. That is socialistic Marxist garbage. Instead, we want to save markets. We want to save private property. We want to save this beautiful civilization because there are forces that seek to destroy it. Again, get involved with Turning Point USA, everybody, tpusa.com. Leave your comment below and hit that subscribe button. Do you know the vast majority of you that watch these videos do so without subscribing? So make sure you hit that bell button, you hit subscribe, and you buy some of our gear below if you would like. The Charlie Kirk Show gear, we have the Live Free stuff, the Rush Was Right stuff. We deeply appreciate it. And if you want to see my upcoming campus tour, tpusa.com. That is tpusa.com, the upcoming campus tour. We're going all across the country. We're even going intercontinental, possibly. I'll allow you guys to guess where that might lead us. But if you want us to come to a campus near you, leave a comment below of what campus you'd like us to visit to. It's going to be more viral and more powerful than ever. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.